Oh.
Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call.
Elizabeth Dolberman.
Here.
Mary Lee Hall.
Here.
Samantha Hall.
Here.
William Hall.
Here.
Jeremy Hash.
Here.
Jennifer Henkel.
Here.
Nathan Henkel.
Here.
James Holly.
Here.
Joseph Wilson.
Here. Moving on to item 2, agenda approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve the August 15th, 2024 board agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the June 20th, 2024 minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on to item 4.01, before we actually get into the student representative report, I will have our policy chair, Ms. Samantha Hall, introduce our new student representative.
So wanted to welcome Caleb Ross as our new student rep for the next 2 years. Had the opportunity to meet with him, and I'm so excited about the energy that he's going to bring to this role, and just really, really want to give you a warm welcome for being here. So thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over to you. You can do a little introduction and do your report.
Thank you. My name is Caleb Ross. I'm a junior at Susquehannock High School.
You're fine.
Got it. Thank you. I'm a junior at Susquehannock High School and the son of a proud graduate, class of '98. I run track and cross country, and that's about it. So I'll get into my report. So
Thank you. Nope.
this week started a lot of fall sports, and I was able to, for the newer parts of the building, like the Aux Gym, I'm very impressed. I saw new portions of the tower, also very impressed. And the demolition of the old cafeteria, which I'm going to miss the green tile. Some specific dates. Meet the band night is tonight at 7 p.m. Meet the teams night with a guest speaker, Colonel Arthur J. Athens, at 7 p.m. is tomorrow night, August 16th. The back to school night will be August 19th at 6 p.m. with an open house at 5. And August 20th will be the 9th grade and Link Crew first day. Very excited for that. I'm on Link Crew. And The next day, August 21st, will be day 1 for grades 10 through 12. And then going into September, the Powder Puff game will be September 25th, always a fan favorite. The 27th of September is homecoming game in court. And then the homecoming dance will be the following night at 7 p.m. on September 28th. That's all. Thank you. Very glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 5 recognitions and presentations. I will turn it over to Mrs. Liz Doberman for 5.01 and 5.02.
We're actually turning it over to Brad Keenan.
Oh, okay, I'll turn it over to Brad.
Sorry.
How's everybody doing tonight? Well. Every year, it's always one of the highlights to be able to recognize our student athletes and coaches that kind of go above and beyond with their athletic achievement. It's an especially nice honor tonight because while the one student athlete can't be with us, Anna Marie is here. These are 2 extremely wonderful, amazing kids. You hope from an athletic department that obviously you want to win games, you want to win championships, but at the end of the day, you want to put kids out into the workforce and into life that are prepared and are leaders and do all the things that you would hope a good citizen does. And the 2 that we have tonight, along with the coach, are just shining examples of what we hope to have, the product of what our program is. I'm going to start with Manuel Cartagena. He's a baseball player. He is unable to make it tonight because he is on vacation and refused. Apparently that is more fun than getting recognized in front of the board. But what I'm going to do, I'll read each of their proclamations and we'll bring them up. Okay. Manuel Cartagena, obviously a baseball player, was selected as YAIA All-Star First Team, whereas Manuel was selected as YAIA Division II Player of the Year, and whereas Manuel was named All-State by the Pennsylvania Baseball Coaches Association. So congratulations, man. Anna Marie, come on up. All I know is you don't want to be on the other side of a volleyball net when this girl hits the ball. Whereas Anna Marie Petrovich was selected as 2024 YAIA First Team All-Star, whereas Anna Marie was selected as part of the PIAA All-District 3 volleyball team, and whereas Anna Marie was named All-State by the Pennsylvania Volleyball Coaches Association. So congratulations, Anna Marie. She leaves for college Sunday. She's going up Cal U, right? She's going up to Cal U to play volleyball.
Did you get your picture? Yeah. I saw you trying. Okay, I want to make sure. No, it's important.
All right, Joel, get up here. Coach Joel Stoneberg. I think we've seen him up here a couple times now. Coach Joel Stoneberg was named the YAIA Division II Coach of the Year, whereas he led the Warriors to the 3rd consecutive YAIA Division II title. So congratulations, Joel. That's it for me. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 5.03, if my computer will update. We're going to receive information from Dr. Reppert and Dr. Kim Hughes on the 2023-2024 Climate and Culture Survey.
Oh, you have some notes there, Dr. Hughes, don't you? Well, good evening, school board and community. This evening, what Dr. Hughes and I will be doing is sharing with you some of the updates. Anna Marie, congratulations, Coach. Congratulations. Sharing with you an update based on the surveys that one of the surveys we did last year, and the one that we're going to focus on this evening was the PAYS survey, which is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. This survey is. You can click to the next one. This survey we do every 2 years, and is for grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. The purpose of that is, as we go through every other year, we start to take a look and see trends as it as it relates to behaviors and attitudes specific to alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and violence. As we went through and we took a look at the survey, we had a really good participation rate between our 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th. And when we look at the total number of participants of the survey, we had 73, almost 74% of our students that did participate in the survey this past school year. So why the pays? Oh, you're clicking? Okay. Am I trying to click? All right, kind of click. There we go. So why the pays? There's two purposes here. One, we need to take a look at, what are some of the patterns related to the use and abuse regarding substances and behaviors. And then secondly, we take a look at what are the behaviors and the protective factors that we can put into place that we can help address what the data is saying. What we have seen with this data, and Dr. Hughes and I will speak more about it, is not only does it give us the data related to our students, but we also get to see how this data relates to statewide, because this survey, is done statewide, so we're able to compare how do our students in Southern York County School District compare to the state, the overall data that's received.
Part of this is also, as we look at the PACE survey, because it is coming from the state, they do use this as a means, but also give different districts and different initiatives money to be able to address some of these issues. So we do take this very seriously because we want to make sure that we're getting a very fair representation, and we have the data to support what we're doing in our school district. And we're going to go through what exactly is in the PACE. So the first thing that we know, creating that safe, supportive school is essential. We have learned this through our HRS work that we've been doing, and it was really nice to see that the first page of our report, which comes in a nicely bound section of it's a booklet, but it does go into that idea that the safety of our students is the utmost importance. We want to create an environment where our students feel that they have a sense of belonging. And it really does dive into the school climate measures, and they break it down into 4 different areas. The first one is commitment and involvement in school activities for our students. So they ask questions to find out, are students involved? Are they committed to their assignments? How are teacher interactions going? The second area is involvement in after-school activities, community programs. They're looking to see, we know that students that are involved with after-school programs and have connections with other people, it helps them do better in academics and in social environments. The third area that we'll be looking at is for violence, alcohol, and drugs, and tobacco. And then bullying is the last issue that they dive into with this survey. You'll be able to see some of the reports that we kind of went through the booklet, and we pulled out some of the overarching pieces. We were very, very pleased to see that 82.3% of our students really feel that it's a safe environment. That really means a lot because we really look at those connections that they're making with their teachers in the classroom. We want to make sure, as we looked at this report, we started thinking about all of the reports and all of the data that we're collecting with HRS, which you'll be hearing about. We're going to be doing some reports throughout the year on level 1, safe, supportive environment. And we're using that information with this to help us to make sure that our students are being collaboratively working through in a safe environment. We identified that also we had class engagement where students really were participating and wanted to be a part of their classrooms. We're at an 88%. But we were also a little bit disappointed to see that we were only at a 59.8% when it came to students reporting that their teachers praised them. This is actually a part of level 2 when we look at the new art and science of teaching and establishing a classroom environment. So this is an area that we've been working with our principals and really our teachers on making sure that we establish these procedures in our classrooms. We also have to take into consideration, though, not everybody likes to be congratulated in the same way. Some of them like a simple pat on the back, whereas other people like to be out in front of people and have that. So it's really getting to know students and what they want. You'll see as we move forward, this is one of the reports that actually came from the PACE survey. So you'll see they provided a bar graph, and then you'll see down at the bottom, and in your actual packets, you'll see this up close so that you can actually read the numbers. They're very small up on the screen, so I apologize for that. But you'll see that it breaks it down into years, and then it does the district in 23 compared to the state. Some of the pieces that we look at with this is that it's really looking to see how is that teacher interaction, the first bracket of information. How do they have someone in the school that they can go to? They have that relationship with, whether it's a teacher or staff member. The second area is really, are they a part of classroom discussions? Do they feel that they can be a part of this? The big one that we wanted to highlight, which we did in the other one with the 82%, that is looking at, do we have a safe environment? And then the last one is the praise, which we talked a little bit about. You'll see that a lot of our scores fell in the 80 range, and we'll continue to look at this data and see how it can continue to help us move forward.
So as we take a look at that second component, we take a look at the pro-social activities. How and where are students involved? We know as a school entity, we want our students to be involved in what we have here, but this survey not only looks at the participation at school, but what's the participation that they have within the community?
Some of those events would be even things like our church events, joining sports at our school, and different types of outside organizations.
So the one thing that we were really pleased with by taking a look at, we have 89% of our students reported that they're participating in at least one pro-social activity. And secondly, when we take a look at the school-sponsored, okay, we're at 62.8%. All right, our goal is to have our students participate and involved in the school things that we have to offer. So as we're looking at, not everyone is an athlete. Okay, but there's other components that we can have our students involved in that we want to continue to share with our students so that they can maybe potentially have an interest and make that connection with students within the school. And as we take a look at the next slide here, you can see that, well, maybe you can't see because how blurry it is, but it really took a look at, the school-based, some of that really came up is family-supported activities. So these are activities that are going on, within, within the family system, where we have students that are reporting that they're involved within their families. The second one, we talked about the school-sponsored activities, but scroll over when you take a look at the fifth one there, the job employment. A lot of our students are seeking that employment when they get to that ability. When it comes to that 10th and 11th, maybe even 12th grade. So now they're learning those skills for as they're becoming career and life ready of how to interact with people outside of the school. The other thing that we really want to take a look at is, how can we get students, and we look at the volunteering, how can we provide more volunteer opportunities for our students? And I know with our high school, taking a look at internships and getting our students in those situations will provide us more of an opportunity to expose them to some of the areas of interest that they have.
One of the things I also want to point out is that we do have an area that we want to continue to work on, and that's for students that don't participate and say that in the last column. We want to make sure that we're hitting many different demographics and different activities that students are involved in. Over the last couple of years, we've added programs and after-school clubs, especially down at our middle school, and we do have an activity bus that we run to make sure that students' transportation isn't a barrier. So as we move forward, the next area that the survey focused in on is drugs. This is a concern across the board, and it's a concern for communities, for families, and for our schools. One of the things that it starts looking at are those gateway drugs and starting to look at things like alcohol, vaping, tobacco, both cigarette and smokeless, marijuana, and other inhalants. We identified that these, from the state, they've said that these are the most commonly used forms of drugs that students of youths take and participate in. And they have also identified that if we're able to stop these behaviors earlier, it then decreases the amount of students that have addictions later in their life. So as we go through, we wanted to kind of point out there were some alarming statistics that came up. But we also saw some areas that we have been working very hard to overcome. One of the things that we identified is that 11.6% of our students responded that they have been offered some sort of alcohol, tobacco, or other drug on school property. This is something that we take very seriously, and we have lots of different programs that we put in place that really help students understand the harmful effects of tobacco all the way through drugs, of marijuana on up through some of the other ones.
And some of the programs that we have in place, we have a partnership with our district magistrate that does come into our 5th grade and speak to students, and we're also working on a variation of that program to focus on not only the vaping, but the impacts of social media, that the students are receiving that often, so they understand the impacts of their choices, where that can, result in, some detrimental behaviors.
And as we look, we also look not only at combating the issue that's in our schools, but also preventing them from happening. So we started in 4th grade when we identified that that's the area that students started actually talking about vaping. So we started a program down there where we had conversations, we brought in information to help those students understand the harmful effects. Oftentimes they hear of an adult or a friend that is older, and they kind of start on that pathway. So we wanted to make sure that we got in early enough that they can understand and do it in a way that is elementary friendly. So as we go forward, we then start stressing it more in our health classes as we move up through the middle school, and then other programs that we've been putting into effect. Even looking at our financial resources to be able to put in vape detectors and other pieces into our schools to make sure that we are addressing this. You'll see at this information tells you a little bit about what they are vaping. So it starts, and you'll see that 22 to 75% of our students, 6th through 12th grade, are really doing flavoring. But we know that that has harmful effects. They feel that it's because it's just a flavor, that it doesn't have the same impact. We know that it does lung damage and other pieces. So we're starting the education there. And then you'll see that it moves through to nicotine, marijuana, other substances. And one that is a little alarming is that some students reported that they were vaping things that they really didn't know what it was. So once again, making sure that we are educating.
And then going into the final component of the survey we're going to share is about bullying. My 20-plus years, we've had bullying. Dr. Bryson coming up on 30. I think you're at, how many years you got in now?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So bullying is not a new phenomenon. But we know that bullying has some detrimental effects on students when you're looking at student achievement, low self-esteem, and depression. And as we continue to focus attention to that, I've reported back to the board, on our quarterly basis regarding our discipline data and showing the trends as to what is occurring with the bullying, but more importantly, that it is being addressed, at our levels. So the one thing we want to take a look at is, what does the data tell us? So according to the survey from the last school year, almost 30% indicated they experienced some form of bullying within the last 12 months. Okay? That's a little less than, 1 in 3. That's too much. Our students should be able to come to our schools, and not just this school, because when we take a look at the data across the state, it's occurring everywhere. So how do we create that safe and supportive and collaborative environment? And as Dr. Hughes referenced, You know, we've really honed in on that level 1 the last 2 years. Now we're focusing in that effective instruction in every classroom every day, giving the teachers some additional strategies that they can help engage the students in the classroom so they feel more engaged in what's occurring. And then we take a look at that last part there. I shared this data earlier today when Officer Hanson and I did a training with the bus drivers. And you asked a question, what do you think the number one reason for bullying is? Well, when you take a look at the data, it's about height, weight, and then clothing and hairstyle. You know, so it gets that specific, so then us as administrators and our teachers can really hone in on those are some of the things that students are being harassed about, students are being bullied about. So it gives us that actual data to say, okay, we have, you know, the data to show here are some of the, you know, concerns of what is occurring within our schools based on the responses of our students.
If you look at the graph, it's the second one at the end of your packet. This is where it breaks it down into perceived reasons for some of the bullying. And you'll be able to see, it says the first column is I don't know why. The second column is the color of my skin. The third column is my religion, my height, weight, etc., physical characteristics, my accent, the country I was born in, the country that my parents or grandparents came from, and then finally, the last section is on the way that I
look.
So we just wanted to make sure that we were presenting this information so that we can start addressing this. And one of the pieces that has come back is that system-wide programs are the way to help really combat this. We have some in place, but we're also trying to work with committees this year to really understand and build the warrior and make sure that we're creating an opportunity where our students feel that they are a part of a collective whole. We are all a warrior in the school district, and we want to make sure that everyone feels a part and is a part of that community. So as we go through, the other thing we wanted to show you was the information that came out about the frequency of bullying. You can see the first column states that they've never been bullied. The second column is yes, but rarely, and the third column is yes and often. So while we like the fact that there are many of our students that have never been bullied, we are still concerned about that last column, and we want to make sure that we continue to work on ensuring that every student feels that they are a part of our community.
So some of our next steps, this is going back for the board, for your information. The Pennsylvania Climate Survey, we had administered that in the spring, but actually late spring into May. And then we took a look at our participation rates based on the timing. We realized that the timing of when it went out, the participation rate was not what we were hoping for. So in discussion with Dr. Hughes and some of the other administrators, we're going to be very strategic with it this year. The PACE survey we do for grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. Those were done in the fall in the previous year. So this year, we're going to administer that the PDE climate survey in the fall. That would give us an opportunity to not only have the parent response, more teacher response, but more importantly, student response, because we want to try to make those connections and have data that, you know, reliable data that we can then compare the results between not only the PACE survey, but then also the PDE climate survey kind of moving forward. So what Dr. Hughes and I will do is after we have this administered in the fall, we will come back to the board. And with the intent of having a higher participation rate that we're able to then show the comparisons from year to year of how our students are performing, but more importantly, how are they responding to the areas of feeling safe, supported within our schools.
We really do feel that when we learned about high reliability schools and really looking at data, we have to keep those data points often and do quick data to see where we are. So we're going to continue to, PACE is every 2 years, and the PDE climate survey and other quick data that we'll be collecting throughout the year will keep us in a pulse. One of the things that we really stress is that when we have the data, we need to do something with it. So when we see that there's an area of concern, we immediately put a team together to create an opportunity to fix what is maybe not where we want it to be.
And the other piece where Dr. Hughes referred to the committees and working with our stakeholders, not just our administrators and teachers, but with parents and community members that are part of those committees, to provide some feedback and some ideas of how we can further address some of the areas of concern that Dr. Hughes and I noted today, but then also celebrate some of our successes. We're not at 100%, okay? We know that. We're not at 100% when you look at the data across the board. We're close in some areas, but we can always find areas to improve.
We were very excited to also see that we were often, and as you look at the data, you'll see that a lot of times we're higher than the state average. So that is also something to celebrate, but we continue to want to work harder for our students.
Any questions?
Question?
Yes, sir.
The full PACE survey data, is that available to us to look at?
Yes, what we will do, the full PACE survey, it's not available online, but for the board, we can make copies of that small little binder that Dr. Hughes had, and we'll see that you receive that. That way you can have that, so you can kind of review each of those components in there.
The things that are online is by the county. They don't have it by school or school district.
Yeah, I have seen that. Real quick, just the frequency. So we do this 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th. Do we administer this every year? For every
No,
2 years?
It's done every
Okay.
2 years, whereas
wasn't
the
clear on that.
PDE climate, we have the ability to administer that every year, or as Dr. Hughes referenced, through Marzano with our quick data, that's something we could do on a regular basis. But she'll be sharing that when we get to the education section about our plan moving forward with Marzano and reporting that back to the board each month.
Okay, thank you.
So if we're looking at the PACE survey, it's going to 6, 8, 10, 12,
Yes,
every 2 years.
yes,
So those same kids are getting surveyed every 2 years.
yes.
What about the kids in 7th, 9th, and 11th? So those kids are not getting hit at all?
Those students, based on how they have it set up, it gives you that group, because what it gives us the opportunity, Mr. Hash, is we can then take a look at how those students responded when they're sixth graders, let's say in 2019, how they responded in eighth grade in 2021, and then how they responded in 10th grade in 2023. Where we gather the additional data would be through some of the other surveys.
So with the PDE survey, would that then hit on the alternate years for the
Yeah.
kids
Well,
who aren't getting the PACE?
Right, well, with the PD survey, actually, we can survey students from grades 4 through 12. Okay, not just the grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. So we're able to, capture all the students through those grades, as opposed to the PACE where it does every other grade every 2 years.
I just want to make sure that at some point, every child is getting the
Yes.
ability
Yes.
to hear, to have their voice heard.
Yes.
With the cycle, it's a new group of sixth grade students this year, so the students that took it last year will be in 7th grade now.
So I think maybe it is administered every year, but only to half of the student, or only.
Yes, yes.
Yes, because well, otherwise what you're saying, I think it would still be an issue, because we're administering this survey
Plus
to half of the students, and the other half never take this survey. But you're saying it's
Right.
administered every year.
Yes, with
to-
one of them,
Okay,
PDE
with one of them,
is not-
okay,
yes.
What now?
okay.
Yeah. The PACE one is every 2 years, and it's the same cohort of students.
6, 7, 8.
Six,
Let's say 6, 7, 8,
6,
10,
12.
12.
Okay.
But, yeah,
On
you're
the
you're
alternate
right.
years, it would be,
7th, 9th, and 11th, they're not ever seeing the PACE survey.
That's correct.
Right,
but they are seeing the PDE survey?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
Okay.
yes.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure that at least they can get their voice heard.
That
Yes,
everybody's
yes.
voices are,
Yes.
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 And and just so you know, with the pay survey, we have no control over the administration and the grades, whereas with the PD climate survey, we can choose specific grades that we want to. As a building, as a district, we can select, but we've done grades 4 through 12.
Okay. Okay, but since we don't administer it, it's not our choice to only survey half the students and the other half never get surveyed with
Yes.
pays. That's just what they
That's-
do. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more question. So it says in the past 12 months, 11.6% of students in this district reported being offered alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs on school property. Does it break that down anymore? That's a very broad question.
So it does by grade band. So it does the 6th grade, the 8th grade, the 10th grade, and the 12th grade.
Now, does it break it down between alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs?
I didn't, Mr. Hall, we'll have to check that, if it does break
Because I
it
see
down.
tobacco then in the later charts, but you don't see the others. And
So-
I think that would be, I mean, although that's a little bit of a horrifying number, it would still be great to have a better understanding of that, so that you have a better understanding of what you need to target to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think going back to that, Mr. Hall, that 11.6, that they're offered any of those.
Correct.
So the concern that we would have as administrators is that our students are reporting, like 11%, that they're being offered something. So as a district, we need to have a better understanding, but then also better communication with our students as well as the parents, because as Dr. Hughes said, one of the components that was alarming is that it was 2 to 5% of students that they're taking something that they don't know what they're taking, which then causes even more of an alarm, not only as an administrator, but as a parent myself, as those that are parents here on the board, it does create a concern. So having that recognition, that acknowledgement, but then communicating with the students that, you can say no. But we also have like our program that we've talked about before, the Safe to Say program, where students are reporting, people are reporting concerns that are occurring within our schools. So that at least gives us the ability to address those concerns as they come into our school.
And they do break it down by alcohol, marijuana, inhalants, and vaping cigarettes.
Okay, if you maybe could break that data down, and I would love to see that.
Sure.
So we have a better understanding of what we're dealing with.
Yes.
And Mr. Hall, what
absolutely.
we will do is we'll provide the entire board with a copy of the 2023 PACE survey, so you'll be able to see each of those components in there.
Thank you.
I guess my question with that also is, are they, like, here, you want some alcohol right now and now? Or, hey, my parents have alcohol at home, someday, we can do that. Like, which way are they being offered? I mean, I hate to say that it is still a problem. But it's not like the alcohol's on the premise and I'm offering it
Right.
right this second. I don't know. I mean, like, that would be a question to me, like, is it in our school or is it being offered
Two.
outside of
Is it
school?
just kids talking?
Not that, yes, yeah.
And it's,
And not that that's good either, but I'm just,
we could show, like, they have online where we can see the questions, but they're more holistic. They're not really breaking it down to,
right,
so it's more what they interpret the question to be.
right. I mean, like, when I was in school, I mean, my boyfriend said, can you hold these cigarettes? I never smoked them, but I
Right.
was obviously offered them, but
Right.
like, that's where I'm
Right.
kind of confused on it. So, yeah, we could be high, but that doesn't mean the kid tried it or. said
And that's
yes.
actually a good point for when we give our surveys, to make sure that students understand what the question's asking.
Right.
Any other questions?
Just one last one. So I really appreciated your point, Dr. Hughes, that, it's data, but what do we do with it? So what is your process for evaluating what we have here, and then knowing that we're going to get the fall survey for PDE, looking at that, what would be the point which you would be making recommendations for things that you perceive that we need to add?
Well, the first step is we're going to be reviewing this data specifically with our administrators, so that they're aware of it. Our health teachers do receive this information because they utilize that within the classroom to determine, what are some of the areas of focus. Now, the curriculum's already written, but if we know we have a concern with vaping, that, we have to take a look at what other resources we need to bring in, what other resources we need to provide our students to understand the impacts, the harmful effects of it. But then also, what's the other component? There is vaping. If you're looking, it could be, just regular tobacco, but there's vaping that could be THC. But then we also have the one where students may not know. So it's continually reminding our students that, there are some harmful things that you may be offered, or, we all know about peer pressure, like you just, sorry not to put you on the spot on anything else.
okay.
But
It's all right.
if someone offers you something, what to do with it? And I think not only as administrators and teachers, but even as parents, have those conversations with your children. Because the last thing we want to see is a child be a statistic as a result of doing something. So I urge parents, have those conversations with your children. You walk away, you say no, but more importantly, that they understand the impacts of how, that could impact them, not maybe even their college career or aspirations of what they want to do. So something to have that conversation about.
Just to speak to what do you do with the data too, I think tomorrow we're going to hear a presentation by Colonel Athens about teams, but the whole foundation of high reliability schools is based on teams of people coming together to analyze data and then determine what does it really mean, what does it really say, why is it, before we go and try to fix a problem that may not be there or the wrong problem. So for instance, whether it be vaping, drug and alcohol, we're engaged pretty heavily with our local district judge, who's now involved in coming into the classrooms, who's now engaged with our high school administration, middle school administration on what do we do for first-time offenders, that we can mandate education as a part of the consequence. So it's difficult to answer that singly, so I'm doing it in a kind of an umbrella fashion. Depending on what it is, there's a different group of people that are looking at it and digging into it deeper than what you might see from a pay survey. That's where they're saying, we need to triangulate this with our HRS data and maybe PDE to determine what is it that's actually going on, and then what do we do with that? I mean, usually it's involving some kind of educational program or a new way to handle something that might require policy or practice, or it might require financial resources like you have in vape detectors. I mean, you could say vape detectors, and that's a pretty cut and dry tool. It's not a solution by any stretch of the imagination. So that's the best way I would say is it's teams of people, staff, outside organizations that are involved in taking a look at this to determine what's their best move moving forward. It's also, I think, to throw on the table, choosing what it is you're going to address, or else you end up all over and not doing any of it very good. So picking those priorities within that data as well.
So I guess the follow-up to that would we be able to see ultimately when you do all of your team analysis on that, what your priority areas are, but then also what your,
Yeah.
right, because you might have some.
And you might see it by building as well, because
Right.
it's going to differ.
Thank you.
Yep.
Was part of your question also about time frame? Like what?
Yes.
Yeah, so when would we expect, obviously, you might get into the discussion and that has to be adjusted, but when would you expect the recommendations to come back from those various teams? Do you have a
I think it's ongoing, because some of this, people talk, they research it, and 2 months from now, you have a recommendation, you know? You may get something from our district judge, like within a month, related to how we're dealing with first-time offenders of vaping. But then you might have an issue that comes up with bullying that requires different programming, that now you've got teams of teachers looking at that over the next 6 months to determine which one best fits our needs, because you don't want to do all that work and pick the wrong program that's not meeting the needs. So there's no specific, we need something right now. It's more, we want to know how it's addressed. We want to know what's happening. And I think you're saying the same thing. When we can be involved with, board action to assist with that's how we come up with most all of our recommendations.
So I think a natural way to have that conversation is, I know you're going to start to do updates on the high reliability schools. So maybe like on the third one or whatever, do you know what I mean? Like, do you incorporate this into it since it's kind of all tied together? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 5.04. Once again, Dr. Reppert.
All right, I'll sit down first. All right, thank you, President Henkel. School Board, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your month off. We got 11 to go to kind of go through this school year. But it's great to see all the teachers and staff back. Seeing the students on campus so far, through the athletics. Dr. Bryce and I went up to the football field, saw students practicing, cross country, the band. We got it all today, but it's great to see the students coming back on campus, and we're excited to kick off the school year. I will continue what I started with 2 years ago with my focus on the safe, supportive, and collaborative culture. Regarding safety, just a couple announcements. We are putting up additional district signage throughout our campus. Worked with Mr. Hash on one of our visits throughout our campuses, identified some of the components that were recommended from the state police vulnerability assessment. And one of the things that was recommended that we do add more signage regarding the video surveillance systems that we have throughout our campus, as yet another layer of notification in case someone says, well, I did not know. The other part that we are taking care of is we're going to be adding signage to our playgrounds and fields as a way, we do work, this is a public school, but during the school day, those grounds, those playgrounds, the fields, those are really reserved for our students, that they're there if they're going out for recess or they're going out there for class. So there was recommendations for adding signage regarding during the school day, these areas are recommended, are for our students. Just another layer of providing safety for our students and staff. And then lastly, we're going to be adding some additional signage to our sports field, which there's a communication that went out this past week, and I want to thank a lot of the administration and members of the school board as we collaborated on this venture of how do we make sure that our facilities, our sporting events are safe. And the one thing we wanted to make sure is our students from K through 8, that if they're coming to our events, that they're accompanied by someone 21 years or older. As many years as a middle school principal and speaking with our elementary principals, there are times that they've noticed that there are just students that are dropped off and then the parents leave and then they come pick them up at the end. We need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves, but more importantly, those students, so that if there's concerns that happen, we want to make sure that those parents are there, that they're supervising their children, or there's an adult 21 years or older that are with them. A couple other items that we wanted to make sure are aware to the public. Book bags, sports equipment, balls are not to be brought into our facilities. If we're coming to watch a football game, let's watch a football game. We're coming to the basketball, we're watching the basketball game. So going for its intended purpose.
Did you say medicine balls?
What's that?
No,
Sports balls. Yeah, sports balls. Okay. Just as a couple other reminders, pets are prohibited on district grounds unless there's a service, pets. And then tobacco products, vaping, illegal substances, alcohol, weapons are strictly prohibited. We want to make sure that that'll be part of our signage that's out there, so that provides yet another layer of reminder to those that are coming onto our campus, not only our warriors, but our visiting folks that are coming to join us. Just another part on safety, a big thank you to Officer Hanson. He and I, as I mentioned earlier, provided a training to our bus drivers from first student. This is the first year we did that. From my understanding, Officer Hanson did a great job. I'm still waiting for feedback about myself. But we focused on situational awareness, different ways of addressing student behaviors, trained them on the threat assessment process, as well as Title IX, sex-based discrimination, racial discrimination, and harassment. So we provided them everything that our staff will be receiving on Monday at 2 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Under the supported section, I wanted to say that there's a high level of support throughout the district. Our staff just did an outstanding job in getting our schools ready. If you have an opportunity for our board members with our opening day, coming to the high school, it's just amazing what our custodial maintenance staff not only have done inside, but even out in the grounds throughout the district. Regarding collaboration, Dr. Hughes and the administrators led some phenomenal professional development for the staff members, and I know that they are ready to start this school year. And going back to something Dr. Bryson said, we're creating highly effective teams that are focused on data. And that team's message is going to be something you'll hear a lot of, that we need our staff, we need our community to work as a team to make Southern New York County School District the best school district we know it will be. A few reminders. Caleb, you took almost everything off my list, so you did an awesome job. Opening day is tomorrow. We do have a retired Marine, Colonel Athens, that will be presenting to the staff, as well as the Meet the Team night tomorrow evening. We're looking forward to the opening day of students next Tuesday, K through 9, and then 10 through 12 on Tuesday. Want to wish Mr. Hash an early birthday, 25, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and lastly, just to everyone, just let's make it a great school year, or not. Choice is yours.
All right, moving on to item 6.01, public comment. I have first Captain Jack Smith. When you come up, please state your name and municipality of residence.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Captain John S. Smith, better known as Captain Jack. I'm the commander of the VFW in New Freedom. I'm also a resident of Shrewsbury Township with the parent of 2 former students at Southern School. I'd like to start this evening by thanking, I shouldn't say thanking, by congratulating one of the 24 graduates who was an employee of our post. Evan Sala graduated from Airman Basic course at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. That was yesterday. So I'd like to thank him and thank everything he did for the VFW and thank him for his service. The second thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank Mrs. Patty McGee for all the work that she did on having the flags that are in, I don't know exactly where they are because I haven't gone to see them yet, but we worked on encasing all those flags, folding them. And between Mrs. McGee and myself and my wife, we got them all together. Oh, no, let me throw another thank you in there. Mr. Bill Kerr, 2 of his classes actually folded a couple of the flags for us during the school day. So I want to thank them. And last but not least, I came here because I've been a little bit fallen back in my responsibilities. Every year, the Veterans of Foreign Wars has a scholarship contest called Patriots Pen and Voice of Democracy. The Patriot Pen program is for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students for all schools, be they parochial, private, or public schools here, and the same with the Voice of Democracy. The Voice of Democracy is for the high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And Patriots Pen is an essay that gets turned in. One of the things that I wanted to ask, and I will follow up with the high school and the middle school, is that the entries come to the post, VFW Post in New Freedom, okay? And we rule on whoever the best is, and we send those up to district, and from district to state, and from state to national, and there's awards on each one of these steps. So, but what I'd like to see is a representative from the schools, the middle school and the high school, to go along with the grammar or the structure or everything else. I mean, some of our people are very learned at the VFW, but I would like to have someone there to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and whatever else is supposed to be there. But that's basically what we got. I've been kind of lax in past years about putting this on. It's been probably the most important part of the auxiliary. And then, by the way, the VFW is no longer like everyone else. It is the auxiliary. It's not the ladies' auxiliary. So, but that's pretty much what I've had. I'd like to thank everybody here. Hope to see everybody here. In case you don't know, I work as game help here at the high school, and so look for me. I won't be wearing this funny suit, but I'll be there. So, I want to thank you very much, and continue your good work. Thank you.
Captain Jack, may I have that, the one about the Patriots band?
You can have the whole thing?
I'll share that with the administrators.
Okay, great.
All right.
Great. Yeah, that's the one reason I brought that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else signed up? I think there was. All right. Moving on to 6.02. Does anyone have any response to any public comment, discussion?
Oh, just thank you, Captain Jack,
Oh,
for all your service.
all right. Yes. So on to, we're going to move 10.01 forward to be respectful of our honored guests. So I will hand it over to our Personnel and Policy Chair.
Thank you. Item 10.01, Shrewsbury Elementary School Assistant Principal Appointment. The Board of Education to consider approval of appointing Doralia Lazos as Shrewsbury Elementary School Assistant Principal at a salary of $94,000 effective August 5th, 2024. So I would like to make a motion to approve appointing Doralia Lazos as Shrewsbury Elementary School Assistant Principal at a salary of $94,000 effective August 5th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Southern York County community, members of the board, Dr. Bryson, and Dr. Rippert. I am Doralia Lazos. It gives me great pride and honor to have been selected as the new assistant principal for Shrewsbury Elementary School. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the hiring committee for entrusting me with Southern York County's children. I am delighted to join the family and looking forward to making a positive impact in our students' lives and community. I am also very excited to become a warrior. This evening, I am accompanied by the most important person in my life. She is my motive. She is the motive behind my perseverance and success, my daughter, Cassandra Lazos. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Moving on to item 10.02. The Board of Education to consider approval of appointing Timothy Bonnets as Susquehannock High School Assistant Principal at a salary of $92,000 effective August 5th, 2024. I would like to make a motion to approve appointing Timothy Bonnets as Susquehannock High School Assistant Principal at a salary of $92,000 effective August 5th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries.
Tim, I wrote your speech for you.
I think Dr. Reppert has some plans this evening, which says thank you. But thank you so much. My name's Tim Bonnets. So excited to be here. First, a huge thank you to all of the board, Dr. Bryson, Dr. Reppert, Mrs. Green, Dr. Sterner, our new principal. Thank you so much for this opportunity to serve the students in the community of Southern York County. The opportunity to return to the school that I graduated from, 2003, very proud alum. It's humbling, it's exciting, and it's an honor. It's something I don't take very lightly. So thank you all for that. Also, thank you all for what you do for the school and the community. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, so thank you all for everything that you do. A huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Sterner, Ms. Smith. Mr. Keeney was here. He's probably doing something with the athletic program. He's always working very hard, so thank you for your support. I'm so excited to join the team. Team is a theme that I keep hearing this evening, and it's something that it's special, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Last but certainly not least, my caring and supportive family. I think they're kind of giving me the wrap-up music. Christian and Abigail, thank you for your patience, guys, and all of your support. My wife, Jenny, who has taught chemistry here for many, many years, all of her love, all of her support, her continued patience. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you all again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Back to our regularly scheduled meeting. I'll move on to 7, consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7.01 through 7.14. Do I have a motion?
Motion, so moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick. In 704, as we're looking at all the extracurricular coaching supplemental agreements and the other supplemental agreements, and student mayor or somebody, are these just renewals from last year that we're just renewing the agreements? Or are these all new?
Let me make sure I understand. So the positions are the positions that are from last year. So the reoccurring positions, the actual people in them, you have to go one by one because some would be people that are reoccurring from last year. Others could be new staff that new folks that we've hired in positions.
But these are not all new positions that we're just bringing on this year. These are from
Any new
previous years, just renewing
positions,
them.
and I'd have to think off the top of my head. These would be positions that would be in the budget, and I believe, trying to think if we added any in the budget for this year, off the top of my head. I think the only thing we added additionally was bocce ball for Unified. And the other thing we added, well, we didn't add, we changed, like supplemental accompaniments used to be a separate agreement. Now they're part of our contract, so they're supplemental. So for all intents and purposes, those would be the only things that would be new, but they were part of the budget process.
Okay. I had one more, if I can.
Yeah.
In 710, we're talking about the AED PMs. Would that be you, Dr. Ruppert?
I'll just pull that one up real quick. So this is just regarding the AEDs, and Mrs. Green, correct me if I'm wrong, this is for the fields, for repairing them?
This is for all, the renewal to service all of our AEDs and check them throughout the district.
Right, is this a full year contract? Is this just PMing? Are we replacing batteries? Because for $450 per pop, what are we doing to these things?
We're checking them and replacing batteries as needed and those types of things, yes.
Okay.
To make sure that, and I agree, it sounds like a lot, but we
Yeah.
want to make sure they work if we can.
Absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with that. Have we shopped this to other companies?
I know we have in the past, whether we did specifically this year, I don't know the 100%. Mr. Buffington takes care of putting this on, I could ask him. But I know we have in the past, and I know we've landed, like, we weren't always with this company. But whether we did that this particular year, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know we have in the past looked at different arrangements and different folks to do it.
And we've just stayed with them for the past couple of years currently?
Yeah, and some of it becomes responsiveness of contractors. Also, price is always a consideration, but we don't always check every year for particular things if we have a good relationship with the company. But like I said, I know we have in the past, but I don't want to say that we did this year because I don't know that to be 100% true.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Moving on to item 8, Committee Report Education. I will turn it over to our Education Chair, Mrs. Henkel.
8.01, I'm going to put it over to Dr. Ruppert for quick data for high reliability schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Henkel. This evening, we mentioned earlier about our intentionality of coming back to the school board and giving an update on a monthly basis specific to Marzano's high reliability schools. And as we take a look at specifically what we're doing, we're going to come back to the board each month and provide an update on a specific component of level 1, safe, supportive, and collaborative culture each month. So I'm kind of stalling a little bit till Dr. Hughes comes back in here. Oh, there she is. I thought you walked out. So what Dr. Hughes is going to share is just kind of an overview of how that breakdown is going to look like. So each month, the board will receive some component or update based on the quick data related to Marzano 1.1.
So I want to first of all thank the board for once again allowing us to have training this summer with our Marzano representative. She was able to come in, and one of the powerful things that came out of that is that every school has a deployment plan on how they are going to be going about when they will be looking for capturing data that will support level 1 and moving forward with level 2. There are 8 leading indicators with level 1, so the way that we decided to do this is divide them up because we're collecting data on them all year long for all of them. But we wanted to bring and highlight them to you and then have a final report at the end. We have to do this as part of our continued efforts to go for certification in level 2. So it's good practice, and we wanted to have a very clear plan in place. So we will be looking at every month bringing to you one of our leading indicators and talking you through and showing you the data that each school has collected for that leading indicator. What will happen some of the times may be a presentation, and other times it will be data that will be given to you that will be in a written format for your information. And you'll get a board brief with them every month as we go forward. So we're really excited because this is the first time that we really truly have a systematic way that we're looking and approaching data and making sure that we are really putting these practices in place. And that we're, once again, the whole point behind this is to do something with that data. So when we see that there's a problem, we have the opportunity to put something in place right away.
If I can real quick, as we're looking at, if we're talking about safe schools, currently 1 in 5 in our school don't feel safe. At 8, 20% don't. As well as 1 in 5 don't feel that they have one-on-one opportunities to communicate with their teacher. Are we going to incorporate the data from this PACE study into the quick reliability studies as well?
Absolutely.
And then, obviously there's always going to be a kid here and there saying, no, I can't talk to my teacher, but 1 in 5 is that they can't talk to their teacher?
Right. And that is one of the
And
things.
they don't feel safe in school.
So one of the things that we are looking at, and we start the school year off, when we hit level 2, it's all about the classroom. And it's all about establishing those relationships and making sure that our teachers and our students have support systems in place. We want every student, and one of the things that we want to make sure are that students either have a teacher, but sometimes they also connect with other people in the building. So making sure that even, that there's someone, whether it's a bus driver, a custodian, or someone in our building that our students feel that they can go to and make sure that they have those connections. That is something that's very important. We want our students to feel that they are a part of a community and that they are here and loved and supported.
So I have one question in reference to Mr. Hash's comment. Is there a way to see through the data if there's a lot of overlap in this 20%, of students? And because it seems that if they don't feel safe in school, it may lend to not communicating well also, and that, the one really may be a result of the other. Does the data get that deep?
Currently, it is not. But what we are looking at, we have structures that we have put in place for a while, but we're always looking at revamping those structures. It starts even with looking at a student's academic achievement. When we start seeing things slipping in that direction, we immediately bring teams of people together, as Dr. Bryson talked about with teaming. We want to make sure that our students, that we have multiple eyes and multiple lenses on them. And then looking at pulling together, seeing their grades, seeing how things are going that way, making sure that we have that partnership with the family to say, is there something going on at home that we can support with? I think those are the pieces that we continue to develop and continue to grow. A lot of our elementary schools, when you look at the idea of a grade level team, that is part, like, our teachers are with these students for the whole day for most of them until you get up into the intermediate grades. So we have structures in place that have teams that come together that talk about student concerns. So I think those are pieces where we need to make sure that we're pulling all of those pieces and looking at the big picture to ensure that every student, that maybe one of those, as you said, it's like those students that are on the outskirts that aren't involved in after-school activities or community activities or have supports. What are we doing to reach those students?
Yeah, I think this data where you're getting 80% of is more a tool for us to determine, are we improving overall over time? When you're talking about individual students, which you don't have access to that same data with individual students, that's where our processes and practices within the buildings can actually sit down and talk about what's happening or what they're seeing with a student that's struggling, either academically, attendance, behavior data, all of that's pulled together, which we reference as a student study team to say, hey, grades are dropping, something's going on, I've tried A, B, and C, and I'm not getting anywhere as far as a change in performance or even their social well-being. So,
because more than likely, that, like you said, that same student who's not feeling an opportunity to talk to their teacher is the same student who's getting bullied with the same 20% we saw and not feeling safe. And there's 15 people up here at this table. 3 of us would be in that boat. Yeah. Okay.
Well, the other piece, when you look at the survey instruments that we have, they're anonymous. So we're not able to determine which 3 at the table are the ones that are reporting it that way, but going back to Dr. Price and Dr. Hughes, it's those relationships, it's knowing, these students that, are they starting to slip? Are there things that are going on in the home that are impacting the things that might be affecting them at school? So we would never know who those 20% are. We could probably guess, looking around, not, let me rephrase it. No, I mean, you could probably, take a guess, like, okay, who might be those students? But until those teachers, the school counselors, our social workers are having the conversations with the students, the teachers are seeing maybe the decline in participation, or maybe what they're wearing, or it could be a lot of factors that then, as Dr. Bryson said, those student study teams where the teams within the school are talking about, here's a student we're seeing a concern, is anybody else seeing it? And then what supports do we need to put into place for them?
I think the other piece that we're doing that is different than what we've done before, we are right now having committees that we're pulling together to look at bringing in parents, community members, and others to be able to help us look at the structures that we have in place for safety. But along with that, those are our reporting features. So like our Safe to Say, we identified right now is primarily for our middle and high school. So how do we go about creating a structure that allows our elementary students to have and their parents to have a bigger voice? So we're looking at ways, because as Dr. Ruppert said, a lot of what we get are from other people that give us information that help us to figure out who are those students. So we rely on the community's phone calls in, on parents calling in and saying, hey, we saw this situation on the bus. Can you look into this? That's how we get a lot of our information, and making sure that we have those structures in place that all of our parents feel that they have a communication system.
And then that would go to the team you were talking about. And then
Yes.
it would start branching out from there, correct?
Yeah, it's so much has changed in the time that I went to school and what's happening now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think you want to hear that as a parent, and I want to be able to share that, it looks completely different today. And I even had the vision of, and I know you guys did this at the middle school when you were down there, we had, where if I had 30 kids in my classroom, which ones have I connected with that I think those students would feel comfortable coming to me if there was an issue going on? And to the point where maybe there's 5 of us on a team, a math teacher, social studies teacher, and we list the students, and if we get to the end and there's 20 that are still up there with none of our names next to them, we actually made a plan to connect somehow beyond mathematics so that that relationship improved to where I felt like now it's more likely that student would come to see me if there was something going on that I'm unaware of in the classroom or whatever. It's making that kind of connection that I know as a teacher 25 years ago that wasn't happening. I can just say that. It wasn't happening. We never thought of it in that way. That how important that is to kids coming in and feeling a sense of belonging in the classroom. Yet at the same point, it's 2024 and we're not at 100%. Clearly, we're still looking at whether it's 16% or 17% that still are not connected to someone they think they could go to adult-wise. And we could talk about this all night because it's truly a passion of ours, yet what the truly important discussion is with the 5 teachers that are there, having the same level of discussion, not just the superintendent. And again, that goes back to, that is the framework of high reliability schools. It's when the people on the ground are actually asking those same questions of, what more can be done to support, and knowing that these are best practices in education to create sense of belonging to our family, so to speak. So that's the important piece, not that I come up with some wonderful program that I think is going to fix it for the 16%, because I can tell you that'll be an epic fail. It'll be an epic fail. The people that are on the ground that know those actual kids are the ones that can best address the challenges there. And we support them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, with the board's permission, I'd like to bundle 8.02 and 8.03. They're the two separate agreements we have with Grove City College and Baltimore County, Community College of Baltimore County. Does anybody have any issues with that? All right, so 8.2 and 8.3, I move to approve the two separate memoranda of understanding with Grove City College and the Community College of Baltimore County for students to take online classes with each at no cost to the district. May I have a second?
Second.
All righty, open the floor for any discussion. Does anybody have anything? I will say that I am uniquely excited about the agreement with Grove City College. That's awesome. And I would also like to give a shout out to Dr. Mullen. I believe that this was his project. A constituent had asked him, and he was faithful to the end to be able to have that move along. And thank you so much. And I believe, Dr. Reppert, you were a part of this as well. Is that correct?
I'm not taking any credit.
Okay. Well done, guys. This is awesome. Does anybody have any other questions, comments? Any nays or abstentions? That motion for those two carried. All right, and then 8.04, it's an agreement between Eastern Mennonite University and our district for a graduate nursing student. I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between Eastern Mennonite University and Southern York County School District for a graduate nursing student for the 2024-2025 school year. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. 8.05, that's a partnership with Harrisburg University for a Federal Aviation Administration drone pilot license certification course, and I'm going to hand that back to Dr. Reppert.
And thank you, Mrs. Henkel. I'm going to hand it right over to Dr. Hughes to give everyone just an update on this very exciting opportunity that our students will have after the staff member completes this for the 25-26 school year.
So I have to start off by thanking Ryan Leapart, who's the teacher who actually researched this and found out about this program. So the way that this is working is that the Federal Aviation Administration has a drone pilot license certification. It's actually 3 courses that the teacher would go through. At the end of that, they are certified by the FAA in drone piloting. So the way that the course starts is that he would be given a number of drones that he would be able to work with our students. Now the first course would take place next year. He's going through the training this year. And so at the beginning of the program, he gets a finite amount of drones that will be given to him for this class. At the end of the program, his 3 different courses, he gets another set of them. So we're really excited because it is a certification program, so we know that there is some pieces of this that will be able to take students into college courses and those types of things in the future. I have to tell you, I was talking to Dr. Reppert on the way in this morning. I was so excited. I was ready to pull over on the side of the road. As I was coming down Swamp Fox, right by Swamp Fox Farm, there was actually a huge drone that they were sending out over the farm. And I wanted to go talk to them and find out more about what they were doing, because I thought about Ryan in this course and how we're going to have the opportunity for our students to be able to go into new exciting fields that are just being developed right now and are continuing to move forward with. Any questions?
It's incredible. It's an amazing opportunity. Thank you so much. All right, that brings us to 8.06, speaker approved for the vetting process. And that is the Board of Education to inform that the following speaker has been approved through the vetting process, and that's the Engineering Society of York to present a physical science presentation to all Southern York County School District 5th grade students at no cost to the district. And that's just information because it's no cost. Brings us to 8.07, proposed elementary, middle, and high school field trip list for the 2024-2025 school year. Dr. Reppert.
Thank you, Mrs. Henkel. As we kind of reflect back to our board meeting in June, we received feedback to take a look at how we can further fine-tune the exhaustive list of field trips that were presented in the format at that time. I did receive some very good feedback and shared that with the administrators from each of the buildings as a way for several purposes. One, to identify based on marking period and grade where the trips were going. But secondly, also to pare down the list of the actual field trips that were occurring. Because, in speaking with some of the administrators, there were field trips that were on that list in June that, well, we haven't did it, but we may do it. Well, the communication was, let's indicate the specific field trips that we are going on. So a big shout out to the administrators and their teams by putting it together in the format that we have right now. I do want to note, share with the board that in speaking with the administration, that if there are additional proposed field trips, let's say third grade Shrewsbury or the middle school 8th grade, that we would bring those to the board and add those if there are additionals throughout the school year. So the proposed list that we have there is just to go on the field trip. If we do have specific trips that they're going to see specific speakers, in speaking with Mrs. Henkel, we would utilize our regular vetting process that we currently have to make sure they go through the vetting process if there's a specific speaker that they're going to see. So it's just for the approval of the field trip list, but if, as I mentioned, if there's a keynote or a specific speaker that a field trip would like to attend, they would have to go through our current vetting process.
Thank you, Dr. Reppert. I move to approve the proposed elementary, middle, and high school field trip list for the 2024-2025 school year. May I have a second?
Second.
Open the floor to discussion. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you so much for providing the way that you guys organized it. That was a lot of time and effort. It was so easy to digest and see where everybody's going. Thank you for that.
We appreciate the feedback. Just because we've done something, over and over again doesn't mean we can't take a look at changing it. So we appreciate the different look, a different lens on what we were doing. So thank you, board.
Any other questions? Any nays or abstentions? All right, that motion carries. 8.08, Stage 1 curriculum maps as district-wide master maps. I'm going to give that back to Dr. Reppert.
And I'm going to give that back to Dr. Hughes, and she's going to walk through, as we've done the last several months, of a specific component of one of those maps for the public to see, knowing that these are accessible for them to view.
So we start, you'll see a lot of maps on this agenda over the last couple of months. We've been working really hard on trying to get all of our curriculum. We're still working getting it all into the new system. And one of the things we identified, you'll see a lot of the elementary math maps, they came out with a new version. So whenever we have a new version, we always update our maps that reflect all of the pieces to them. So it was a labor of love this summer, and we worked through it. But you'll see that on the map, it starts with giving an overview of how long the unit would take, looking at the unit focus. What exactly will this unit have in it? What is the information that students will be learning about? Then it goes into the established goals. We start with the standards that are required by Pennsylvania Department of Education, and then our long-term transfer goals. These are goals that our departments came up with. So in this case, our math department looked at, for a kindergarten student to a 12th grade student, what do we want them to be able to do with mathematics? We are really looking at very hard this year at our math program and having a lot of opportunity for us to examine what we're doing in each one of our courses, making sure that we're looking at how students are learning through using multiple means. we reference something called CRA, which is Concrete Representational Abstract. So when we look at our maps, we want to make sure that we have opportunities for students to have something that they have manipulatives in their hands and they can move it and see. That there's something that they can draw. And then the abstract is where they have a math problem that they have to kind of think through. And so we're working very hard with our students to make sure that they can do all three of those phases as we go through our elementary maps. If we scroll down, you'll see that then it's the understandings, which is the overarching big pieces. We go into the essential questions, which are those pondering questions that we want students to kind of think through as we get information during the unit. And then what knowledge and skills will they walk away from? This is the first part of what we look at with a curriculum, is that we look at the unit information, what's the big overarching things that we want our students to learn. And then from there, we create daily lessons that help us build to an understanding. And we use math manipulatives and those types of things to be able to do whole class, but also when we see that a student doesn't have a certain concept, what are we doing? So how are we pulling those small groups and doing some reteaching efforts to be able to make sure that they get the concept? So we're very excited as we move forward this year to put in place this new updated curriculum and really working hard. I was fortunate to be able to go to a session with our curriculum associates, who is the producer of our math materials. And there was a lot of really great opportunities to see research from other states even, and how it has grown their students with math concepts. So we're really excited to continue working through this and looking at our math program.
Any questions?
I just wanted to give feedback. I think I had shared with you before at the comprehensive planning that we did. We take for granted what we have here with our curriculum maps. I know just in a webinar that I had taken, this isn't a given in every school district. And so I appreciate the work that you put into it, that it keeps us consistent across all of our different grades and teachers and so forth. And it really is a huge effort, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
From an implementation standpoint, so the general public knows, once we approve these, do they go live and the general public can then see what we saw, or
Yes.
how does that work?
So the way that, and we can show this at one of our board meetings, the new website, when it goes live, we're going to actually put a link on our website now that will take them to what we call the curriculum blueprint. And it's called storyboarding, which allows a parent or a community member to look at the overarching, what each unit is about, if they don't want to go this far in depth to it. So they'll have like a little piece that kind of gives the overarching of what the unit's about, and then they can go more in depth to see the standards and those types of things if they would like to.
Yeah, I have to say that for myself, the being our co-ops history, government, and civics teacher, the AP American Government and Politics, when you guys get to see this, the questions, the overview, the concentrations, it's absolutely a piece of art. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
But just to I just want to clarify your question a little bit though, Kim. That's not live yet, right?
No.
Not yet. We do have a link that we can put to our, on our current website, but that takes you to, it's like its own website that'll be sitting in ours.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't misunderstood that they could go out there tomorrow and read it.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. All right, I move to approve the following Stage 1 curriculum maps as district-wide master maps. Project Lead the Way, Principles of Engineering, Math Grade 3, Math Grade 4, Math Grade 5, Math Grade 6, Art Grade 7, Art Grade 8, Introduction to Art, and American Government and Politics. May I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. That brings us to 8.09, proposal for mention music service for the purchase of musical equipment for the Susquehannock High School Band. I move to approve a proposal, you can see below, from Menchie Music Service Incorporated for the purchase of musical instruments for the Susquehannock High School Band at a cost of $23,192 as budgeted under the CoStar's contract. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any questions or conversation? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries, and that completes the education report.
All right, I will now turn it over to our treasurer for finance and budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. 9.01, financial reports. The treasurer's report for June and July, tax collection report from June and July, the budget status report, cafeteria reports, all from June and July, are attached for your reference. I do want to just touch on the balances real quick. The beginning balance for June in the general fund concentration account was $9,335,622.21. The balance at the end of July is $5,832,354.42. For the investment account, we started in June with $33,725,349.32. And we ended in July with $30,364,435.02. 9.02, the bills for payment. I'd like to make a motion to approve the bills for payment as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.03, budget transfers, there are none. 9.04, I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Green for an update on the state budget and how it affects us.
Good evening. We're gonna do a series of presentations on the budget, so this will be the first one. There is a lot here, and it's pretty detailed, so we kind of want to chunk it up a little bit. The state budget was approved at the beginning of July, and there's still a lot of moving parts. So if you have questions tonight, I'll take them, but I'm not sure I have all the answers yet. Okay, so there, thanks. Okay, so we're going to start with the summary of our major subsidies. So you can see on my left, the four different groupings. We have what we always have: basic education funding and special education funding, so they're reoccurring. We have ready to learn block grants, so I'll talk about those, and then charter school reimbursement. So as far as basic education funding goes, we have the difference between our 2023-24 and what we're getting for 24-25 is about $218,000, but we anticipated a good bit of that. So really the difference from our budget is only about $22,000 for basic education funding. So we're going to talk in depth about that this evening. Special education funding, we have an additional about $174,000. Difference from our budget is about $70,000. We'll say this for special education funding: there were many, many, many years where we didn't get any additional funding, so we are pleased to see that. Those are the two buckets that I'll say are most stable. We tend to not go down in those two areas. We can tend to stay stable or increase. So those are the ones we can typically count on, except for one particular year in 11-12 when it went down. But other than that, over the last 20-some plus years, we can count on those two as being stable. I point that out as we go to the next two buckets. They are not as stable. Ready to learn block grants, which at one point in time were called accountability block grants, do fluctuate. So as you can see there, we're getting about $520,000 more. One of the concerns we'll talk about later is whether we will continue to get that. When you have funding and then it's not stable, that does pose concerns. And then charter school reimbursement funding, that is a welcome $135,848. But again, if I want to put that into comparison, our charter school subsidy in the 2009-2010 school year was $160,000, and about 30% of our expenditures, this is about 9%. So again, as we look at some of our subsidies, whether they're reoccurring and stable is important. So we're going to talk in depth about our basic education funding, or BEF. As we're working through this, if you have questions, let me know. It is a very complicated formula. I want to say this, there has only been a formula for several years. Probably the last 6-8 years we've had a formula. Prior to that, back to 1992, it was basically you took what you had last year and everyone got a percentage. So if you had more funding than others, that continued to go up. If you had less funding, you continued, because we know as a percentage, if everybody gets the same percentage, if you're low, you get less. If you're high, you get more. So that was when they decided to go several years ago to a formula. So we do now have a formula, but as we talk through the formula, there's some pieces with that also. There is also a hold harmless relief supplement. We are not getting any of that. I'll try to explain that one. That one's a little complicated. Changes to the basic ed funding formula that was in place. They're resetting the base to 2023-24. So one of the components of the formula is that we're going to set a point in time, 15-16 school year, and that's your base. You can't get less than that. But going forward past that, you can get less, back no less than 15-16. But we're now resetting that to 23-24. So when we continue to reset, we continue to get to a point where folks can't lose. So if folks can't lose, we're not equalizing this out as much as we could if we were setting that base to 15-16. So we are resetting that base to 23-24. On a positive note, one of the things they did put into this one is they're smoothing components now into a 3-year average. Instead of using 1 year, anyone that does mathematics understands that if you use 1 year and that 1 year is fluctuating, you're going to do this roller coaster thing. So they are doing now a 3-year average. That is a very positive thing. I think that's a very positive thing for us. And then hold harmless relief. That's based upon what more the district, so it is a little different than what you think when you think of hold harmless. That's based on what more a district would have received if they didn't have the hold harmless in there. So if I'm a hold harmless district, I'm now getting money I shouldn't have necessarily gotten under the formula. But if I'm not a hold harmless district, I maybe should have gotten more if these folks didn't get hold harmless. So that's a complicated concept, but I'm trying to explain that is, so it's really helping those historically underfunded districts, a lot of times like the cities and those kinds of areas. All right, so now we're going to get into lots of numbers. Student weighted distribution. Most of the formula, or part of the formula, is based on the student weighted distribution, but most of it goes back to that hold harmless piece. So all along, even the other formula was based on, part of it goes through the formula and part of it is what you've gotten before. So as we go through the weighted formula, I'm going to talk about the components of that and how that impacts our district. So we start with our 3-year average of average daily membership. So the way I explain average daily membership is we think about children that are enrolled in the district. So we call them bottoms and seats. So it's really looking at the average of children in the district. Then the first set of adjustments are based upon the needs of those children. So you get weights for how many children you have in poverty and the different levels of poverty. You get weights for how many cyber and charter school children you have. You get weights for how many English learner children you have. So you get weights for all those different pieces. So that puts our district up to about 3,300 students based on this 3-year average. But then as we move to the next set of adjustments, they're based on median household income index and local effort capacity index, which I will explain because those are complicated. So that puts us down to 2,611 students. So we have 3,000 ADMs, but we only get credit for 2,600. Is everybody following? So we're looking at another York County district. They start with 2,100 students. They get adjusted in their second adjustment to 2,600 and their third adjustment to 4,800. So they get credit for 4,800 students. So as we're working through the formula, again, I'm just explaining factually kind of where we are. So let's roll into the next piece, and I said it's complicated, so if you have questions, let me know. So let's go to the next slide. So what's driving our results, and why are we getting credit for less students than we actually have? Some of the big components are median household income. Southern New York's median household income is $90,516. The York County three-year average is $74,760. And you may say, okay, well, the city's in there. So what I did is I actually took out York City and calculated the median without it. That's still at $78,543. So we are have a significantly higher median household income than other districts in both York County and the state. So the state average median household income is $68,000. Because we are significantly higher, the thought behind the formula is our community can afford to pay more. So again, I'm just putting the facts out there. So we get a factor for our median household income of 0.753. So when you multiply a number by something less than 1, you get less than that number. So because we only have 3/4 of an index there, or 0.75, it's significantly lowering us. So we move to the next slide. So the next piece is local effort capacity index. That's the sum of the local effort index and the local capacity index. And it really is very complicated, but it is what it sounds like. What is your ability to pay in your community, and are you paying that? So those calculations both include the median household income and or personal income, which we just said was very high compared to the rest of the state. So that puts us for the local effort capacity index at pretty much a flat 1.0. So that one doesn't look as bad, but a lot of our neighbors are at 1.5, 1.7, 1.3. So comparatively, we are low. So when you roll that all together, so we can go to the next slide. So we're going to kind of take everything I just said and kind of pull it all together. So if we start at the beginning with the number of ADMs with adjustments, we're at about 3,300. We take that 0.75 and we take that 1.06 and multiply down. That gets us to our 2611. So that's how we end up with less counted students than what we actually have, versus one of our neighbors ends up with significantly more counted students than what they actually have children in the district. So that's really kind of how this is working. So that's why if you look at the basic education funding and what different districts receive, that's why we did not receive as much as other districts, because of that local ability to fund.
Yeah, so
And-
New York Suburban, they got something like 17%. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yes. So, yeah, and this wasn't York Suburban, but yes, they are another one I could have used for comparison purposes. So if we move on to one of the other funding sources, go ahead, Kat. The adequacy supplement. This is new, and so this is based upon, so I'll try to explain this one. This is based upon the district's share of the $494 million that's in this bucket from the state. So you basically take $14,120 as the amount that should be spent in 2021-22 as your expenditure. You compare that to what you actually spent in 21-22, and it determines whether you have enough adequate funding for your school district. Now, interestingly enough, we don't use the same weighted student count in this calculation. This now actually feeds in other pieces, such as special education student counts, because you're going to say, Sue, you just told me that our number was this, and now you're saying it's 3,991. That's because this supplement uses a different student count. So ours in this case is 3,991. And then that calculation drives an adequacy gap for us of $4.8 million. So I just told you a minute ago, we have the ability to pay, but the calculation is showing that our expenditures are lower than what the adequacy is, so now we're getting an adequacy supplement. So we're $4.8 million lower than what we should be from an expenditure standpoint. So we got $520,000 based upon our share of that $494 million. I know, it's a little complicated. So as far as this adequacy supplement goes, there's various uses. One of the things I'm extremely happy about, a lot of times when we get these additional supplements, the strings are that you must add additional programs in order to get them. This one does, our belief is this one does not. That's what we're hearing. The webinars are coming out for all of these pieces in the next couple weeks. So we're kind of a little bit ahead of this, but I just wanted to report. And one of the big concerns here is whether or not this will be reoccurring. These accountability and ready-to-learn block grants tend to be ones where if we have to remove funding, they tend to come and go throughout the year. So again, back in 9-10, this number was higher than what it is now, but not with the adequacy, but without the adequacy. So before, what would happen was you were asked to put in programs using the money, and then the money would go down, and so that would be a problem. Obviously, we know cost of programs aren't going down, they're going up. So as we're going through this, the really good news is we can use this for existing programs that we plan to do anyway. So I think that's a definite positive. Okay, move on to the next one. So other funding information, cyber charter school funding, I talked about that. So it's our pro rata share of $100 million. So we're getting about $135,848. That's about 9.2% of our expenditures for the 2022-23 year. So we spent about $1.5 million, and we're getting $135,000, but it's $135,000 we didn't have. And then the next piece is physical security and mental health grants. They have been combined, is my understanding. We just received information 3 days ago on that, so we're still combing through it. That is due at the end of September, so we'll bring an update back at the September meeting, but we're getting about $155,000 this year for that. And then school infrastructure, stay tuned. We don't have much information yet on that. And the grants that we applied for last year, we have not heard yet whether or not, both for the infrastructure and the environmental, we've not heard whether or not we're getting those. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
On the first slide, why was the charter school reimbursement zero in the 23-24 actual?
So we haven't gotten we haven't gotten reimbursement since, I think the last time we got reimbursement was the 10-11 school year.
Okay, so it's common for that to be zero.
Yeah, so like I said, in 2009-10, we got $160,000 and then they took it away.
Okay.
We haven't gotten it.
I didn't realize it would.
Yeah. It's just been redlined since then,
So
yeah.
this is the first time since then.
Yeah, sorry, I probably wasn't clear, but some of those buckets, they come and go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And same slide if I can. So if I'm understanding this correctly, then this is $750,000 positive impact on the budget.
Yes, from budget standpoint.
Yes, from what our budget is, it's a
Yep.
$750,000 positive.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I missed that. Any other questions?
The infrastructure one, when do we expect to hear, or when do we think?
I'm not sure. Like I said, so the one came out on the 12th. The other one came out on the 13th this week. So I don't know, maybe tomorrow. So they're kind of coming in slowly. The webinars related to them, I think I have like 5 scheduled in the next couple weeks, and they're over like the next 5-6 weeks. So they're coming in slowly, so we can kind of figure out.
Okay, great.
I have
Thank you.
one. The mental health grants combined with the physical security, you've got it at $150,000. Is that including what Congress just passed with the cell phone grant, that if we go that direction, because wasn't that a baseline of $100,000 that every district gets for that if we participate?
I am not sure the answer on that, because that one came out on the 12th. So I know we set up a meeting for all of us to meet and kind of look through the grant applications, but I'm not sure at this point.
So that could actually be in addition to this then, right?
I can't speculate, I'm not sure.
All right.
But this doesn't include that, so
Right.
if that were available, it would be in addition to this.
It should be.
Yeah. I'll take that.
I think it is, I would agree, I think it is separate, but it is not guaranteed. But the cell phone usage to purchase locking bags, I think is what you're referencing.
I think there is language that says a baseline
Baseline is-
100,000 is guaranteed, and then there might be additional, but maybe that,
Because I also read where it's locked into your economic need is what, so depending on what your district economic need is, that's who gets locked into the grant funding first, so to speak. Which obviously usually puts us out of the running if that piece is in there. But we'll continue to take a look at the,
Yeah, at this point, I just looked at when the due dates were and how much we were getting, just so we can kind of prioritize.
And then one more quick question for clarity. When we went back to the comparisons to another local district, did I hear correctly that the local effort capacity index, ours is roughly 1%, and a neighboring district was 17? Was I hearing that correctly?
multiplier of 1, and
No,
So I heard
1.5.
Because it didn't sound, I'm like, what, 17?
I think somebody might have said somebody got 17%.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's different, like overall, they got 17% increase in funding.
That's why I didn't get it. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mrs. Green. Okay, 9.05, Board of Education to receive, let's see, this is for information. This is for information, letter from Smith, Elliott, Kearns and Company LLC. This is for our auditing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's for information. 9.06, going to make a motion to approve a change in the price of an adult breakfast from $1.95 to $2.85 for the 2024-2025 school year as required by regulations. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any conversation on this?
Yup. So as we talked to teachers, as we were going around, especially the elementary school, they were saying that they aren't getting, they're getting the same portion as an elementary school child. So if we're gonna increase the price, are we also gonna increase the portion of what they're getting, especially at an elementary school?
So we did talk to Chartwell's, and there'll be the portion of the high school child for our staff. It'll be a similar portion to them. But as far as the increase in the price, that's a requirement by the federal government that we.
Right, but I'm saying if we're gonna increase it, can we at least,
Absolutely, I mean,
Somebody
yes,
has
that is something that should have been happening, and we, long before we knew about this change in
Right.
regulation, we have talked to Chartwell's about making sure that adults receive an adult portion, not,
as we get into
An
this new
elementary.
venture with Chartwell's, at least we can get that done too.
yeah. Mhm. The other thing we are doing is, this is for the entire breakfast, so breakfast includes different components, including drink and entree and fruit or vegetable. We are also doing an entree only, so if you don't want all of the other components, there will be an entree only option, since it is such a change in price.
I saw that, yeah.
Any other conversation? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.07, à la carte menu prices. I'm going to make a motion to approve à la carte menu prices for the 2024-2025 school year. In executive content, you do have the list of all the pricing there. May I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.08, I'm going to make a motion to approve refund and exoneration requests for two not-for-profit organizations. One, Grace Church Shrewsbury, and two, Word for the World Community Church. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? These were two non-for-profit, obviously faith-based organizations that had gotten a classification of not being not-for-profit. They did get exonerated from York County.
Right.
And they provided certification to us to exonerate them from.
Right, so one of the things that happened was they either changed hands or they did improvements, and when they were they're automatically put on as taxable, and then they have to apply for that tax exempt piece, so it's pretty much a paperwork thing. And then with the timing between our year and the county year, theirs being January 1st, ours being July 1st, a lot of times they make things effective January, but it's the next January for us, so we're kind of in that no man's land. So really, this is where we're kind of falling.
Any other discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.09, wrestling mats. I'm going to make a motion to approve a quote from Resin Light for the purchase of replacement wrestling mats for the wrestling room at a cost of $34,785.35 on the CoStarz contract. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. I have no other business, so back to you, President Hinkle.
Moving on to 10, Personnel and Policy. I'll turn it over to our Vice President.
Thank you, President Hinkle. Skipping to 10.03, board policies. So this is just information. The Board of Education to receive policy revisions for consideration. The first reading of these policies will be at the September 19th, 2024 board meeting. Review of these policies will take place prior to that at the Personnel and Policy Committee meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 17th. And you will know that this is a date change from what was published on our calendar, just to be able to allow us to have a little bit more time to be able to deliberately go through them. So again, just for information, you have the yellow sheets right at your desk. 10.04, this is the discussion on the Templeton Advantage Agreement. I wanted to set this up and give it a little bit of context. Again, this is for discussion, so this is being brought up just to be able to get board feedback on it and be able to follow up from our June conversation. So when we met in June, we had a scope of work from Templeton, and we were talking a little bit about working with him to be able to help us distinguish, some of the things going on in the district that we needed to be able to understand and prioritize, especially as a new board. I really listened to the feedback that we got at that meeting. I heard Dr. Bryson ask a very good question about, where's the administration role in this? It wasn't omitted, it just was not it was not part of that, the scope that we had. So what we have here in terms of a scope of service, we've outlined 5 steps, and the first step starts with the board meeting with the superintendent and the administration, just to be able to get that feedback and to be able to invite that collaboration on at the onset of the project. Another piece that I heard from the board was that the process wasn't very specific, the deliverables weren't very specific, and so I really had a chance to talk with Mr. Templeton several times over the past couple weeks, and so I think what we've been able to outline is a process that we can use not only this year, but it can be replicated for ongoing years for, boards to be able to look at what the organizational priorities would be. And I would say that the outcome of this is to really define what our organizational priorities are, to be able to determine metrics. We talked a lot about that with some of the presentations that we had. Dr. Hughes talked about, you have data, what do you do with it? What is the action plan? And I think a third component of this alignment between the priorities and the metrics would be just making sure that it's reflected in our budget priorities. So just making sure that we have that alignment. And so again, we would want that stakeholder input from the administration team, from the board, from our teachers and staff. So that kind of gives the context of where we were going. And one other thing that I reflected on with this was just, and I think I brought it up at the June meeting, the experience that we had working on the superintendent search. At that time, there were several new members to the board, and we had to go through a superintendent search. And it was very helpful to have the use of an outside facilitator to be able to guide us through decisions, and just to be able to have somebody that was totally focused on this process as opposed to something that we were managing on our own. And so when I look at this scope of work, again, which I'm looking for feedback on, step one starts with the board meeting with the superintendent and the administration. Step two would be getting surveys with the teachers and staff, just to be able to layer that in. Are the priorities that we're outlining as a board and administration concurrent with what they have? Are there new things that they are thinking about? And then we would have a step three, which would give us the ability to do some focus group discussions. So if there was something that was brought up that just warranted more questions, we would be able to go a little deeper in a focus group, and being able to, kind of determine what that level is that we need. And then really step 4 and 5 would just be developing our options and best practices. It's what we talked about earlier. We've got the work, all of the information. How do we actionize that? And then step 5 would just be that plan implementation. So those options and best practices, what does it look like in implementation, and have ongoing assessment. And so I really thought about this a lot over the past couple weeks, and I just kind of want to outline what I think the benefits are, and then we can open it up to discussion. So I think, having Tom Templeton come in helps accompany our team of 10 and gives us project management on a step-by-step process. So obviously, we all have capacity in terms of the things that we have to do every day. This gives us the ability to have somebody else manage this process for it and really have some accountability for that process. I think, again, the benefit of having somebody from the outside come in is to get that outside-in perspective and be able to engage our team with our full focus. So we're not trying to manage the process. We're not trying to project manage it. We're bringing somebody in. They're able to give us outside-in perspective. Mr. Templeton has worked with several school districts. I know Central, and I know that you had talked with somebody at another one. So bringing that diverse experience from many school districts. And then I think another benefit would be that we're getting a planning survey tool. So again, we can replicate this year after year. We go through this process, we can get this survey tool, we have the data collection, and we have the analysis. And again, Tom will help us with that. And I think, to be transparent, one of the benefits that we saw when we were doing the superintendent search was having that facilitator really helped us skillfully manage group discussion and helped work us to consensus building, so that we could all feel that ownership on the decision that we made. I think there is a level of accountability and really being able to be focused on the goal through this project. And I think, again, moving forward, this gives us a process for the board, a very formal process of how we work. We can continue to use the facilitator for this process, or if we, are, very comfortable with it, we can do that on our own. But really, the goal is to intentionally align our organizational priorities, those progress metrics, budget priorities, and then really year after year, that's giving us a feedback loop so that we can continue to evaluate the change, because we know that our students are ever changing, our families are ever changing, and that thing that we did 5 years ago that maybe it didn't work, maybe with a new student population it does, and so it gives us that continuing feedback loop. So what I'm hoping to get from our discussion today is I would like to be able to, if you have reviewed this, give any feedback to Tom. I would like to be able to give him just whatever he needs to be able to finalize the scope of the work, to give us dates, which we have talked about, and the pricing, and then we would come back in September, now that we've had this conversation, and we would look to vote on that, and the project would commence in October. So with that, I will open it up to any discussion.
I'd like to clarify a point.
Mm-hmm.
In your presentation, you said he has done studies like this for other school districts, but when he, in person, was asked the question, what school districts did he do this for? And his answer was, I've never done one of these before.
I'm not sure if you noticed in reading this, but the scope of this has really changed from what we first talked about it. We were talking about a diagnosis before, And we realized that we have a lot of that information from when we did our superintendent search. If you remember, we did the survey to help us determine what our priorities were at that time, what were strengths, what were weaknesses. So this really moves from kind of a diagnosis, which we have, to really just taking what we know we have and really coming up with a common set of priorities. And it really is, the focus isn't so much on the program as it is the facilitation to go through this process. It's like most boards go through when they go through strategic planning. They usually have a facilitator come in to help with those things, but we're not doing a strategic plan at this point. We're just trying to identify what those common priorities are, what our action plans for it, and again, have us as a board be able to own that.
Mrs. Hall, when you were speaking to Mr. Templeton and you were going through all the various steps, step 1 through step 5, what did he anticipate the timeline? I know that we're going to tailor, I'm sure that we'll find things, you know, as we come by them, but what did he anticipate the timeline to be?
So he was hoping that we would get together in September, the end of September, beginning of October, doing step 1, getting that information, and then moving to step 2. We wanted to give teachers time to be able to get back into the classrooms. We didn't want to hit them up with this too soon. So we were looking at doing step 2 probably late October, November.
Okay.
And then those focus group discussions, however they would carry out, depending on how that survey is and how much analysis. And then when we get into the beginning of the year, it really would be taking all that information, looking at it, and beginning to develop those action plans. And Mr. Templeton would accompany us through the end of the year, so we would have a full year with him, just to make sure that as we go through this process, that again, we have that accountability that we talked about, and that as we move through, maybe, changes in direction or so forth, that he's able to walk us through that.
Thank you. And just, the incredible amount of work you put into this is so much, you've synthesized so much of what our conversation were. I see even where my little addition is in here, so thank you for that. You worked really hard on this. This makes a lot of sense now. One of the things that I was having a hard time with the previous agreement was it just was too broad. I couldn't really understand the step-by-step process, and I can see the adaptability with this. It gives us a lot more tailoring. We've obviously broadened the scope of what we were first talking about. What do you anticipate? Have we talked about agreements for price?
Yeah, so we talked about, he's going to give us a firm price on it, but a not to exceed $5,000.
Oh, really? Just looking at this, it would not surprise me if other districts don't adopt the same thing. This is.
I think the benefit of working with a consultant on this type of a project, where again, we're really sort of looking at for their facilitation, is that they don't have a high amount of, other things to be able to support. It's a team of one.
So I have a question. So in the superintendent search that was performed in the hiring of Dr. Bryson, was this a similar type component that took place during that?
It's a lot of the same steps. We did a survey. We didn't have focus groups, so we weren't really able to get into any of that so much, but then it was coming up with that. And then really what, I think it was the LIU, they came up with, what the survey tool would say, what the priorities were. We talked about that, as a board. We were able to, kind of just give any input to it. And we were able to have input into the, to the survey instrument as well, which I think is another sort of key thing for us to be able to have.
So this is a little bit of an assumption, and maybe you can ask Mr. Templeton. So although he may not be taking this component of that superintendent search, pulling it out and doing it for other districts, this is a component that would be inside of his superintendent search, which is something that he does all the time.
Correct.
So it's really just a piece of what he does all the time, and we're, asking him, we're not asking him to do something that he hasn't done before. We're asking him to take a piece of what he does every day and perform that piece for us alone.
To our needs.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I know you're all not going to appreciate this, but there is no comparison to what I read in the scope of work and what that man does in hiring a superintendent and assisting a board in hiring a superintendent.
It really has the same components to it. It really does. We did a survey.
Why are we into this? That's my question.
Well,
why are we in?
I mean, do you want me to give you my honest answer? I think as a board, we need to have, the ability for us to be able to be in a room like we were with the superintendent, be able to have those conversations, be able to develop what our organizational priorities are. So that way, as we move forward, we don't get into the weeds of this decision, because we've outlined what our priorities are. And we've gotten that feedback not only from our superintendent, from our administrative team, we've gotten that feedback from the teachers. And again, Mr. Holly, it is always ever changing. So I would even expect that some of the things that we surveyed 2 years ago, we've done a lot of work with high reliability schools. We have our certification, we're continuing to do that, where one of the indicators that came up was, the safety. My feeling would be that it's always going to be something, but it may not be at the same level as it was 2 years ago, because we've made a lot of movement since then as a board.
Well, and if I can comment to your question, Mr. Holly, in my mind, it's very equatable to all of the work that we do with surveying our students, for the teachers to have a greater understanding of where our students are and the things that they need to be on the lookout for. I see this as the same thing at an administrative level, so that we as a board can gain the same type of understanding through this survey type work that our administration is gaining by surveying our students. And I know that sometimes I would much rather the perspective be driven by data and to be driven by analysis than to be driven by opinion or impression. And I think that this will give us the ability to have that. And I do not feel as a board member currently that I do have that ability, which is my main reason for wanting to see something like this implemented. And it's the first time it's been brought up at this level to see it at a yearly basis. And I think that could be so helpful. And then to understand, just like we're looking at that yearly, we looked at several years, in some of our earlier graphs comparing year to year to year. We would also then be able to gain an understanding of our successes, potentially other things that are coming up that we didn't anticipate that would be coming up, that we might be able to circumvent them before they would reach a higher level of problem that we weren't aware of. So I really see it as a great tool, and I agree with what you said earlier. I think this is something that could really, really help school boards having a better understanding of our strengths and our weaknesses and how we're approaching them.
Additionally, I would say one of the reasons I want to do this is I don't want to act on anecdotes. To kind of when Mr. Hall was talking about acting on data, I don't want to act on anecdotes, but I still have them. I have anecdotes from students, from staff, and I've heard anecdotes from other members of this board of things students have said, of things staff have said, of things parents have said. And I don't necessarily hear the same things if I'm in a meeting with Dr. Ruppert or Dr. Bryson, and it doesn't have to be that they're hiding anything or being dishonest in any way. It's that information doesn't always make it all the way through the chain. And so sometimes having someone who will come up with more focused surveys focused on maybe some of the content of those anecdotes where we can provide, I've heard the following, can you cover that in your survey, rather than a state-provided survey that's just standardized, that isn't specific to our district. So I've heard about this thing happening, can you include that in your survey? Can you address that in the focus groups when it comes up? So I need to in order to properly understand, are these isolated things or are these things that are more widespread? And I'm just hearing it from the one person who chose to speak up about it.
We've spoken a lot tonight about how we want to take a team approach, you know, as we're moving down through the levels from administration into our staff, having a team approach to these things. I think this helps us be a better team as a board.
Yeah, additionally, we've already seen just in the presentation that we had today, and this is, of course, no reflection to what Dr. Ruppert and Dr. Hughes were saying, but with our PDE survey and with our pay survey, we are already seeing the disparity when you don't tailor something, which we do not have control to do that, and so I'm not suggesting that that's anything to do with anything that we're doing wrong with that, but, you know, when we were having ambiguous disparities between this question, and you had raised the point about what are those other substances. Well, we don't know because we didn't ask and can't ask, you know, directed questions based on the unique needs of our district. Well, hey, here's the opportunity. We can tailor all of those, and we're not going to be perfect at it, but we can certainly make those disparities, you know, not so, they're going to happen in the other surveys. They have to, because they're not going to direct questions that are unique to our district. So, yeah.
And I'd say if you're concerned, if your question is about what this accomplishes, I mean, one of the purposes of tonight is to get feedback. So I'd say send Mrs. Hall your feedback on what you would like to see in something like this. Now, maybe at the end of the day you don't feel that something like this is necessary, and that's certainly an opinion you could come to have at the end. But I wouldn't come to that opinion until I'd actually contributed my own feedback to the process and then seen the final results.
So I would definitely ask anybody to give me feedback. If you need time to think about it, I know sometimes like in real time, it's hard to sort of think of everything, but
I think the survey is a great idea. I agree with you, Sam, that when the superintendent search was underway, the survey results were very helpful in being able to ask specific questions of the applicants and what we were challenged with at the time. And they were able to provide some solutions. And I think that just being a board member for the past 3 years, you hear a lot, you know, in and around town. You hear about, you know, thoughts of staff retribution and that anonymous surveys would be appreciated. And if everything, you know, all lines up together and we're doing great all the way around, that's also helpful information. But if there's something that, you know, that maybe staff members don't feel supported on or what have you, we can incorporate that into our goals for the following cycle. And that would be a win for everyone. You know, if we can really understand where we are, a snapshot of our complete school district in one shot, I don't see that as a loss at all. I think that's very helpful. So thank you for your work, and I know that's one step that I'm super behind, is that anonymous survey.
thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to 10.05. This item is for the Board of Education to consider approval for Dr. Bryson to attend some professional development. I would like to make a motion to approve Dr. Robert Bryson to attend the LIU 12 Superintendent Symposium conferences as follows. One conference on September 25th to 27th in Bedford, PA at a cost not to exceed $1,500. And a second conference from the dates of March 26th to 28th in 2025 in Annapolis at a cost not to exceed $1,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And what was that?
I was going to say, don't forget souvenirs.
I have no other items of business, so President Hinkle, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Moving on to item 11, buildings and grounds. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hall.
Okay, thank you. Moving to 11.01, water test report. Mr. Buffington?
Water test report, since we didn't meet in July, we provided water test report for June and July. And as you can see, coliform tests and TTHM tests all came back good, safe in those regards.
And if you could, as we had discussed earlier, elaborate a little bit on some of these changes and the calculations that we're taking results for the potential, I believe it's a form of plastics that can be in the water, is that correct?
Yes, one of the new tests that's being required, the PFAS testing, is underway. We've taken some tests. Actually, just the other day, we've taken another test. We're in consultation with our water consultant as well as Pennsylvania DEP, as those limits have changed on a federal level. We're working with all parties to see, how we move forward. But certainly part of that is getting more results back.
And that, just for the public, that is 2029, is that when that is being, so we have some time on that, because I know we discussed that in the last board meeting. I just wanted to make it clear to the community that this isn't something that's going to be nipping at our heels in the next 6 months. We have some time to get results and see if actions are necessary.
Yeah, and our facilities aren't the only ones in that boat, statewide and nationwide are looking at that. So as we continue to get more information and, through our consultant, we're working directly with Pennsylvania DEP.
And we are in compliance currently and none of those regulations are coming to bear currently. Just for everyone's peace of mind, we're in compliance.
Correct.
We have safe water.
We do.
So drink up, it's safe. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 11.02, Buildings and Grounds Report for June and July. You want to?
It's certainly for your information there. I heard Dr. Reppert mention the great work by our operations and maintenance staff, and I would echo those words, and in particular when you put a challenging high school project in that mix, it's just amazing what our staff has done, from moving and cleaning and coordinating with contractors. So just a shout out to them.
Very good. Thank you. 11.03, Susquehannock High School Project Progress Report, Financial Report, and Timeline.
Yes, there's a lot of information given there. Couple things. We're on time. We're on budget. 54 work days. Last I took the piece off of the calendar.
It feels a little more daunting when you put it that way, doesn't it? 54 days.
Yeah. What's left? You may say, hey, what's left? The team rooms, the contractors are busy working on the team rooms. They won't be ready for the start of school, and that was planned. I think it's 4 classrooms, so most of the classrooms are actually, going to be used this school year. As well as what else is not done, the main entrance and the main parking lot, which will sit in the new front of the building. But a good portion, if you haven't been through, a good portion of the building is, going to be used on Tuesday when those students come back in through the doors. We're
We're looking towards the end of October to finish up, 54 workdays. You know, but things are going well. I'd like to dig in a little bit to change orders and the finance side of it. As I said, you know, on budget, so you can see there, you know, our original budget, and then our remaining budget, you know, just over $700,000. If we can hit to the second part of the slide, you know, kind of digging into the contingency and change orders. You know, you can see at the beginning of July, a little over 300,000. Then with the change orders that we have on the board tonight, taking about $40,000 there, and we're just under 300,000 in contingency. But as we've been pointing out the last few board meetings, I'd also like to point out the allowances that are not used. You know, so if we end up in the project not using that, that's certainly money as well that you know, for the positive. So just want to kind of point that out. That you know, budget-wise, we're doing well.
Thank you. And then moving on to change orders approved on site for the high school project.
Yeah, so the change orders, as we just saw, the total district cost of the $39,171.48. How we get to that, you know, there was a total change orders of $49,772.87. Couple credits, the asbestos credit, we had talked with the board that allowances that weren't used would be coming back. You know, so we had a little bit of that offset by a change order, as well as designer responsibility credit. That's how we ended up at that little over $39,000 there. A couple more months to go, but again, I think we'll be okay, budget-wise.
And I think in speaking to the toll pipe replacement in the front of the school, that's really responsible for roughly 50% or 40% of our change orders this month, but you can go into a little bit, but it was definitely something we needed to do.
Thanks for mentioning that one. Yeah, the biggest change order there, GC 061 for just over $15,000. One of the things is, as we did this project, you know, a significant portion of the project, you know, will be repaved, you know. So one of the things that, you know, we're always, you know, looking at is we don't want to be digging that up later, you know. So some of those storm lines and sanitary sewer lines and things were replaced as part of the project. This change order in particular, there was one line that the contractor had seen and had mentioned that, you know, to take a closer look at, and so the team did look at that, and, you know, we decided that it was in the best interest to replace that line before the paving occurs here by the end of the project in that section. And most likely, if you came in the front drive tonight and you parked over here, you actually went over that line. So it's at the Y at the front drive.
And it really is to our benefit to do that, because cutting through brand new blacktop always results in future problems. So being able to get this done pre that top coat going on, it was definitely money well spent.
It was discovery of something that it was a credit to the workers that they discovered, they dug up something, discovered it was a problem, and alerted us rather than just focusing on what they were doing. They noticed a problem and reported it. Yeah.
Right, and I think too, you take, you know, $15,000 out of that number, and it's, you know, it's a much easier pill to swallow, but it's something that we had to do. And also, it is worth noting that we did not find any more asbestos in the demolition, which I was a really big worry, and you guys had done a ton of work to have us prepared for the possibility, but I think we can all say we're thankful that it didn't come up.
Yeah, to that end, you may recall that, you know, we put the bid out for, and for $500, you know, the price came back, so for $500, it's one of the best use of our money, I think.
Definitely. Definitely. So, okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 11.05. I have a motion to approve a contract with Modern Group Power Systems for preventative maintenance on the generators for the 24-25 year for a fee of $915. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Ken, I'd only note that is for the new generator at the high school.
Okay, the new generator at the high school. Thank you. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 11.06. Before we jump into this motion, Randy, I would like to talk a little bit about some of our preparations for the signage for the baseball field.
Sure. One of the things that we're looking to do, we're seeking proposals for a couple different options for scoreboards. One option would be to move the scoreboard from the old baseball field to the new baseball field. A second option, and as part of that option, one of the things that we would have is, do the two existing poles stay out at the old baseball field, you know, with no scoreboard on it? So that's one option. The second option would be to leave that scoreboard there and actually install a new scoreboard both at the new baseball field and the old baseball, or the old softball field, JV softball. So adding two fields, so adding two scoreboards. So at that point, the second option, both softball fields would have scoreboards, both baseball fields would have scoreboards. As we've seen with, you know, many of the contractors and suppliers and things, it's difficult. It's tight to get proposals, to get good proposals. I did get in one proposal just to move the board, and it was above 13,000. And yeah, I wasn't in fond of that proposal. One of the things we're also looking at, these scoreboards obviously need power. We have that expertise in-house. We did look at perhaps getting a contractor to do that, but we believe either option, we would do the power end of it in-house. So we're going to move forward looking for proposals and bring back to the board.
Do we have anything, I'm sorry, do we have anything temporary for the new ball field that they can use? Is there anything, I mean, what comes to mind is, you know, flip scores, I don't know, something that they can use, that you can buy something that you can just put an extension cord on or whatever, and you can light it, and it, you know, something for the team to be able to use in the interim until all this is worked out. The logistics is just so long, you know.
We do have, you know, a couple of months. I understand that couple of months can get eaten up pretty quickly.
Right.
But I would really like to see the team have a real board here before season starts. Logistically, is it 100% possible? Maybe not, but it's our intentions to try and see that through for to get the information, for us to make a decision, and hopefully we'll get a scoreboard on that field for next season. So, and the other work that, the work on the softball field and batting cages and pitching areas, that's all complete, correct?
The baseball end of it, there's a little bit of work on the softball, but yeah, that's near complete.
So, thank you for that, Randy, for that update. Okay, 11.06, a motion to award the following proposals to Heritage Lawn and Landscape Care of Thomasville, PA, for top dressing and seating the athletic fields, varsity softball field, field number 10, for a cost of $3,561, the multi-purpose field, field number 6, for the cost of $8,332, and the junior varsity field hockey field, field number 9, for the cost of $7,578. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question, because I know in the first go-around, we were talking about the upper and the lower field, and so now it's just got different terminology, and I'm not familiar with baseball, but is that what we're moving to, where it was the varsity field is now going to be the JV field, and the JV field is going to be the varsity field?
So the field to the right of the football field, from our perspective, is the JV field.
Okay.
This lower field down here below the elementary school is the varsity field for baseball.
And that's the new way, or that was the old way?
That's the new way.
The new way, okay.
So yes, we're switching.
Okay.
Short answer.
And these, these expenses, from my perspective, are really important. It's so easy for us to get behind the 8-ball on our grass fields. And in light of the numbers, the cost that's required to have AstroTurf, this pales in comparison to that. And I think it's money well spent to be proactive on our fields. So I think this is necessary. That's just my opinion. So any other discussion?
And this isn't enough time for us to be good to go for the next season, right? Is that what our, okay.
It is, and we're getting into rotation, not only for baseball, softball, but all our grass fields. So, we'll be coming back with more fields. Each year we'll do fields and get into a rotation with the top dressing that, is adding nutrients to the soil and helping to establish that the grass fields, so.
But for
Mr.
clarity,
Keeney.
this isn't going to close the fields. Not, the JV baseball field now is currently closed. We're not using it, but this is not going to close these fields.
We'll actually rest them for like a 6-month period, but we'll be able to, in season, have the softball games and baseball. So we'll rest them on the off season and do that work. And working with Mr. Keeney, we looked at the different fields and when best to do the work, whether it's in the fall or in the spring, so that activities could be held on each of the fields.
But just for instance, we're not resting the multi-purpose field.
We will in the spring, except for on the north end of the field, they actually have the throwing events, so that those throwing events in the spring will still occur. But because the football activities not happening or won't happen anything on the spring, that field will rest as much as possible, in the spring.
Okay.
So we are resting them, but we're also able to have the intended use on that during the season that's played.
We're not displacing any team activities through these processes. That's probably a better way of putting it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Remind me how much the scoreboard was, like, for the baseball field?
The one that we had,
I guess the new one that we,
yeah, don't have that number
I mean,
right in front of me,
estimate. It
but
doesn't have to be exact.
approximately, I think it was 3,000 to 5,000, you know. Now, that had.
And we're talking 11,000 to move it.
13.
That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, we
what.
might as well get new ones.
No. I had got the proposal and I'm like, oh, this doesn't
right.
do me any good. Now, one difference, you know, we had an existing scoreboard, you know, so the power was already there.
True.
And the poles. So you're taking a board off, you're putting a new board on, hooking up the power. Any of the, if we do the two new ones, you know, there's nothing there. You need to, you know, concrete in the
Cost
ground,
more.
posts, power to it, you know, so there is a scope of work difference. But $13,000 to move the board.
Or 13,000 for a new one, and then you have two.
The other issue is that if we keep it at the JV field, then we also have to install one at the JV softball field.
Yeah, so it's either move one or
But it
buy
doesn't,
two and infrastructure two.
but the JV softball field could wait another year if needed. Like, we could get one and be like, hey, this is on the plate, like, we're trying to work this out, but we're not gonna get everything at once. Like, I mean, it could just be a,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be done at the exact same time,
right,
but we just have to do it.
right,
If that's the route we go, we'll have
right,
to.
right.
Yeah, the other consideration I want to throw out as you're looking at it is, once we have those there, we'll have to maintain and upkeep them for long-term. So, you know, while we want to look at right now, we also want to look at long-term, like where we need to.
You know, like
keep them
maintaining
going.
2 boards versus
Versus
maintaining
4.
4 boards.
Yep.
Right, so, okay, that was quite the rabbit trail, but do we have any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 11.07, a motion to approve the agreements with Johnson Controls for 5-year fire inspection at a cost of $14,193.33.
Certainly not, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Certainly not as exciting as ball fields and things, but we're required to do multiple, you know, so this is just one portion of testing of our sprinkler systems. You know, we have fire alarm testing and all kind of testing, but this is a required test for us.
This is not optional.
All right.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 11.08, use of facilities. I know a lot of times we gloss past this, but I think it's at least worth mentioning that, and I'm sure it will be advertised, but that the Friendship Elementary is having a PTO family picnic. That is one of the uses, September 5th from 4 to 7. Also, they are having a designer handbag bingo, also at the school cafeteria and kitchen, and that is on November the 10th from 11 to 6. So if designer handbags is your wish, there's a perfect opportunity. So that's for information only. Moving on to 11.09, other items of business, which I have none.
I went ahead and looked it up just because I figured, hey, we could get an exact answer. A scoreboard is a search term that doesn't occur too often. It looks like in January 2023, there was the purchase and installing of a replacement scoreboard for the high school baseball field at a cost of $9,466.24.
So that was to
is
buy it
that-
and install it.
And install.
That was
Said
purchase
moving
and
for
installing.
13.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like 13 was
I don't
We'll
want
see
to
what
do
we
it.
can get out of this.
Right,
So
so,
13 was I don't want to do it price.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Both us are running electric, right?
well, and it's, but yeah, I mean, moving it didn't include any of the, well, did moving it include putting in posts for it, or it's just moving?
No, they
it?
just installed.
Just moving
That
it
was
from one
just-
place to another, wow.
Yes, so, that was the I don't want to do it price, which, I mean, sometimes you get those, right? I mean, it happens sometimes. So, okay, Mr. President.
All right, I'll turn it over to, for Transportation, Health, and Safety, Mr. Hash.
All right, we have our student transportation report. The full report's there for your reading, but as we are now starting the new year, Susan, Rita, and the team has worked with First Student, and they have established the new bus routes and all the, people moving about, and bus capacities have to get changed over. I do believe we are done that, correct? And we're going to approve that here in a second, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I hope so.
Also, all this, as we're looking more at safety of the school bus stops and trying to bring awareness to red light, the red sign stops. The yard signs and banners have been purchased. When we get them, they will go out to the local municipalities, be placed in the high traffic areas to increase awareness of these, school buses are coming around, start to be aware and be respectful of the kids. We are still looking, or First Student is still looking for a few new drivers. Just if you know anybody, send them over. Looking for a couple, I do believe. We retired we got 3 new buses and we retired 3. Per the agreement with First Students, all buses pass state inspection 100%. The driver and staff welcome meeting was this morning, and their safety meeting was on the 13th. That is all for that report. 12.02, we are going to make a motion to approve the following items for the 2024-2025 school year, including summer programs of 2025. Number 1, bus drivers, and number 2, bus routes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion, comments, concerns? Nays or abstentions? Hearing none, we will pass the bus drivers and bus routes. We're going to look at some fourth quarter in 1203 from Dr. Len Ruppert. This is a wrap-up of the whole year, as Joe was doing work on that with him. And Dr. Ruppert, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hash. For the school board, at your desks, you were provided with an updated copy. I know in executive content, I had included the first, second, third, fourth, as well as the 2023-2024 end-of-year data, which was finalized at State Schools. One piece that I did add, an additional column, was the last year's 2022-2023 State Schools final report. As we take a look at not only the state reportable incidents, but also when we took a look at code of conduct, because now we're in through our second year with it. Now we have some comparisons to take a look at, not only by the marking period, end of the marking period, but also as we're taking a look at the final State Schools report. One thing, a note to the school board, I did have some conversation with several board members. As you take a look at the incidents throughout the school year, that data is not entered into the State Schools system until the end of the school year, which then it runs through a bunch of filters to determine were there duplicate entries, were there entries that maybe were in one marking period by a date that should have gone into a second marking period, just as an example. So the one thing I want to caution with as we move forward going into next school year, first, second, and third marking period, are an admin as well as the technology department. They're working on trying to as I would say, clean up those incidents that are entered into our Sapphire student information system. But once it goes into the Safe Schools report, that's where we get that final checks and balances and everything gets cleaned up. One thing I did want to note is that is not on here. I know we talked about it previously back in June. One of the other items that we do take a look at is our connection and balancing, so to speak, with Southern Regional Police. So anytime that Southern Regional Police is contacted regarding incidents, and I will say after speaking with Chief Boddington, see, I got it right.
You got it right.
With Chief Boddington, that this was the first year in the last few that what Officer Hanson, Southern Regional Police, has, where they were involved in situations. It could have been drugs, it could have been alcohol, it could have been situations where they were called due to a disorderly or whatever it may be. That we finally had 100%, where the report was 100% in connection with what we had and what Southern Regional Police had. That's not on here, but I do want to say that we are doing everything we can to provide the public and provide the board with what's occurring within our schools, so we have that physical data to take a look at as to the number of incidents that are occurring, and then specifically what are state reportable, and then the others fall within our code of conduct. And lastly, I did want to point out, I will continue to highlight the areas in green that relate to our policy 103, dealing with Title IX sexual harassment or other forms of harassment with racial discrimination, bullying, and other forms of harassment, because I believe it's very important that we see, yes, there are behaviors, there are concerns that are occurring within our school that are being reported, but most importantly, they're being addressed through a variety of supportive measures, which could include consequences coming from detentions, in-school suspensions to out-of-school suspensions.
Do you mind, just for the information of the rest of the board, under 17 fighting, can you kind of break that down, what you were telling me about the...
Yes, so this was another one of those components. If we take a look at 17, underneath all other forms of harassment, intimidation, you'll see an asterisk, you'll see a 2228 by marking period. So when we take a look at when it's entered, okay, I'll give you an example. Let's just say, Jeremy and Bill get into an altercation, all right? In the system, Jeremy will get noted for being involved in a fight. Bill would be entered as a fight. But it's only one incident, but there's two students that were involved. So even though you see how it's reported, we only had the 7 total incidents during the school year, but it involved 14 students. In each of those, it was 2 were involved in each of those. So that's another one of those nuances, how we report it, but then once it goes into our Safe Schools report, it only clarifies it or categorizes it as one incident. Thanks for bringing that up.
And as we do look at the data, it is interesting, we had one, at the end of the year, people were done with it. It goes up. And also, I assume because as we look at the 2022 to 2023 and then 2023 to 2024 totals, the number did go up. That's because it's safe to say people are feeling comfortable reporting more things?
I wouldn't say that's a great question. I wouldn't say necessarily that was the reason, but our students are, learning. They're growing. They're experiencing challenges, and as things are occurring, this data, at least in my eyes as the assistant superintendent, shows that, yes, our administrators are addressing the concerns that are brought to their attention. And then, depending on what occurs, assigning whatever they deem as appropriate consequences as per the student handbook.
I was looking at this, I mean, it's fourth marking period, seems like things have, that's kind of our lowest incident marking period last year, or, well,
For most.
yeah. Second least.
Well, and I think it's interesting if you pull out, so if you pull out item C, student code of conduct, because those are kind of more minor infractions. It's not a strict downward trend, but 45 in the first marking period, 37, 28, 37. And then if I look at just the green areas, it went 14, 11, 7, 7. So it's hard to see a trend with it bouncing up and down a little bit on the general sort of more severe cases, but the green areas are dropping for 4 periods, which isn't a lot of data, but it's encouraging.
And the part that I alluded to earlier, now when we go into this school year, now we have a third year of data that we're going to be able to take a look at and compare by marking period. So as I come back to the board, what you'll see for infraction count first marking period, you'll see 2024, 2025, but then we'll also include the previous 2 years with that marking period. So we can at least look at, some comparison based on beginning of the school year over the last 2 years.
Yeah, one possible benefit of that is if there are certain types of events that just are more likely to occur during a certain marking period, you can try to get ahead of that particular class of.
Which is something we did last school year in March.
Yeah.
And if we start to see those trends coming up and the conversations we're having with the administration, it may then turn into a focus of something they need to, maybe it's an assembly. Maybe it's something with a specific grade, a specific class. Because now, not to say that it hasn't been utilized, but I think in this way here, it does show a breakdown based on the district level, how our students not only are being held accountable to what extent the disposition would be, the consequences that they're earning.
Quick question. I mean, obviously, we talked about the climate, the PACE survey earlier. That survey is telling us that 1 in 3 students have been on the receiving end of bullying, but this is not a third of our students or anywhere near it. I'm just wondering, is there any comparison between that data source, which is coming from students, and this, which is coming from, the administration?
Mr. Wilson, you bring a great question there. We have not, and I think the differences with the PACE survey or the PDE survey, those are perceptual, and they're anonymous. So you can get responses based on how that student is perceiving or what maybe the mood they're in at that day. Now, yes, our numbers for bullying are definitely a lot less than what is part of that data. I think the part that we want to continue to stress to our students is if you see something, say something and report it. If it's something occurring to you, report it. If you see it's occurring, report it, because if we know about it, we can do something about it. And we have been really preaching that message more and more. And I don't believe we're going to get to 100%, but I think if we can get students to feel more safe and comfortable that they can share concerns that they're seeing to make our district a great school district where everybody wants to belong, it will definitely be a benefit. But these are clearly ones that have been observed, reported, and addressed individually, as opposed to when you look at a survey, being anonymous, and then 2, how they respond to it. Because on a perceptual data, I think you would see a higher percentage of those saying, yeah, this is what's occurring, because they know that their information's not going to, their specific information is not going to be shared.
Right. It's an important distinction between what you get from official reporting versus an anonymous survey.
Right, and not to
Yeah.
put a too fine a point on it, but, and to beat a dead horse, but it also shows, and loved what you said, Dr. Reppert, it also, the disparity could be the difference between felt experiences versus reporting, right? That could happen, and we're encouraging and trying to have a climate where people will report things. But then also, it could totally be an educational issue too, like perceived bullying versus actual, it could be that too. And when we get to tailor our own surveys, we can, you don't want to say leading questions, but you can certainly take away the ambiguity of the question. So, yeah.
I think a big part of it too, and additionally, Jim, what you had just mentioned is when you look at it too, because I just went back and looked, you keep going back, well, I have this assumption, can I prove it with this set of data, you know? So you keep diving into it, but one of the things our administrators, we've talked about the data, not just this time, but the year before, is that perception of what bullying is or is not, meaning at the elementary, if a student is being teased, like, oh, da-da-da-da-da, and then that's it, that's teased, but it's not an ongoing power struggle between one student gaining something from that by ongoing teasing. But bullying became so
It's felt.
media, like, that almost it becomes any kind of teasing is referred to as
Yeah.
bullying.
So the label in a survey is different than actual reporting because they very well could be two different things.
Because even when you look at the data, it's like like you get to 12th grade, 80% of the kids say, no, never been bullied
The last 12 months, yeah.
in the last 12 months. And then I go to same 12th grade, you can knock off another 10 to 15, well, 15% takes you to 95% when I combine yes, very rarely
Right.
with no, not at all. You're now down to 5 or less percent. And I think some of that is just the understanding of what that is versus.
Yeah.
But either way, as Dr. Reppert indicated, if we know about it, we can work through it. It's not like we're going to ignore it because it's teasing, but you handle it a whole lot differently and hope we can change that behavior.
But if this survey only asks a question about bullying and doesn't ask questions about, teasing, then maybe some of the discrepancy is between the bullying number and the student code of conduct.
We got
and
this.
Some part of the student code of conduct.
We're ending up, the student code of conduct falls in this very small percentage over here, where the student has repetitive.
Or that's where the bullying is, yeah. And then
That's
some
truly
of
the
these
bullying.
are showing up in student code of conduct because it's a
Could
one-off.
be.
And we don't consider a one-off to be bullying because it's not repeated.
Or the child's in 3rd grade and we're saying, that's not very nice. You're right, I shouldn't have said that, da-da-da. Okay, that might not go in as a detention. But hey, you're gonna have to stay with me during lunch, or whatever, whatever the case may be, so.
Thank you.
So those numbers may be represented, just not necessarily under the title of bullying.
Yeah, different categories.
Some of those
Some of
other
them.
things.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're more ancillary.
Some of it's not
Maybe-
reported, some of it falls to a lower level.
Yeah, and the two of the others that, it could fall under inappropriate behavior. That's one of our codes. Disruptive behavior. Because if there's name call or something, it could be in the classroom, it could be a disruption to the learning environment as to how, and those are not state reportable, but would fall underneath the code of conduct.
May I just
Any other
change the
questions?
subject for a moment? Mr. Ross, it's getting late. I know you have to get out of here because you've got your link crew training tomorrow.
Yeah,
So I just want to just touch that with you so that you know you can go at any time.
Yep.
You're not stuck to your chair.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was just waiting for a break in the.
Oh, don't, yeah, no, you,
Didn't
don't
want
wait
Feel
for
free
the
to
break.
speak up.
Yeah,
Break.
yeah, break.
We won't be offended.
Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank
Great
you.
first night.
Thank you.
I hope it goes well tomorrow.
Thank you.
You have to tell Mark that we'll be watching him.
Anything else on the discipline study?
Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes, I'll take all the credit, thanks. Al.
Yeah.
You can have the credit.
As we move on to 12:04, no. Yeah, 12:04, that's right. We're gonna receive some, information about a new procedure on first-time offense of smoking use, tobacco, nicotine, and other nicotine delivery products. Turn it back over to Dr. Ruppert.
Thank you, Mr. Hash. As we talked about earlier, we're always taking a look at how we can better address and educate our students based on concerning behaviors that they're involved with. And we had this opportunity to partner with the American Lung Association, specifically with tobacco-related offenses. Now, I want to say tobacco, not THC. If we're looking at vaping and other THC, that's a different route. We're looking at up to a 10-day suspension. It could be up for board expulsion. So I just want to clarify that we're just talking tobacco at this point. So in our student handbooks, it currently indicates that students that are in possession of tobacco, will receive consequence as per the student code of conduct, as well as a citation. All right? Well, what we have learned in our communication with our district magistrate is that we're having students that are repeat offenders. Okay? And under our previous procedure for tobacco is a student receive a Saturday school detention and a citation. And what we have noticed is that was really not changing some of the behaviors that we were seeing. So in collaboration with our district magistrate, working with the administration, we came together, and I'll give credit to Dr. Sterner, new principal at the high school, who really took the lead on this. We both met with Dr. Bell and the district magistrate to really come up with a way to educate our students about the dangers of the tobacco use and the vaping, in addition to consequences they would receive. So in the board briefing, there was a two-tier approach. Now, this is for first offense only, okay? And a question did come up, well, Dr. Reppert, okay, what if we had someone that last year? It's going to be first offense kind of moving forward from this point, because even if someone had a previous offense with it, we want to give them this opportunity to receive this education. So in first offense only, a student will automatically receive a 3-day suspension. But the parent, in conversation with the administration, the student will have the opportunity to receive a Saturday school detention, but they have to complete this program. Dr. Sterner is already went through the training for it. We have other administrators that will be going through the same training, so they can sit with the student as the student goes through and completes these modules. So
In that Saturday.
in that Saturday school.
And
Now-
the parent is sitting there with the student.
The parent would not.
No, they would
No,
not.
it would be the student and the administrator sitting with the student. Now, they still will get cited. All right? The citation will still occur, but it provides the student that first time of a tobacco violation that they can complete this program. And our expectation is that they walk away from it with a better understanding of the impacts that this would have on them. The other option is the parent could say, or the student can say, no, I don't want to do Saturday school, I want to do this program. Well, then they will be suspended, okay? And it'll be 3 days of an out-of-school suspension and still get the citation, all right? So we're taking that approach of how can we better educate our students We shared the data earlier about the vaping, about, regarding tobacco. So how can we better educate these students that are coming into school, being in possession of tobacco products, vaping products that have tobacco, and gives them, just for that, like I said, that it's only the first offense, that they have the opportunity to go the route of a Saturday school, complete the program for that first offense. Now, second time around, they're going to receive a suspension. Okay, so we'll have note of that in the student's, discipline record. But it really just provides us that educational piece, that additional educational piece from a research-based program that's being provided by the American Lung Association, the in-depth program. So we're really excited because it gives us an ability to partner. We're still going to have those visits, as I'll say, with our district magistrate. Our administrators will still go there, okay? But it now provides an opportunity for our students to really understand the impacts of the choices that they're making on that first-time offense.
And with everybody being involved, the parent, the magistrate, and here at the school, everybody's going on board with the same program.
Yes.
Going forward, which is awesome.
I have one follow-up question, if I could.
Yes.
How does this affect the athletic students that are basically under contract and they've signed a paper saying that they are not going to do these things, but they slip up and they have their offense? Do they do all of this and then there's a separate consequence for their athletic commitment that they've broken?
Mrs. Hall, that's an excellent question. Currently, in rank 1, when the students completed their contract, if they're in violation, it would be a 60-day suspension, from participation in extracurricular. What we are going to bring back to the board is a recommendation to make a change with that, which would be the days. I don't want to let it out today because I want to bring it back in at the September meeting. So to make a change based on offenses and then the time frame from being excluded from extracurricular activities or participation. So I'm working with the athletic director, the administration. They're already working on what the draft changes would be. We would present those at the September board meeting for approval. They would not go into effect, though, until that next season. But it really just shows that our administration is really taking a look at what the current is, but then how we can make some modifications with that to better suit our students, realizing that, okay, students, you may make a mistake, so there's still going to be accountability and consequences, but it will not be to the extent of the 60-day that it currently is. But we need to bring that to the board next month for approval to make that change. And then for our winter athletes, they'll be able to make that change in rank 1. And then any new students participating in the winter sports, they'll get that new one. And then any students that were in the fall going in the winter, that would be communicated out. And we would communicate that out, not only through the board meeting, but Mr. Keeney will be communicating that through his coaches that will go to the parents also.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Well, great question.
Quick follow-up as far as the report. If it's a first offense and they go through the program and there's no recidivism, that doesn't expunge the record from here?
Does not.
Okay.
It does not. So what we would see on here, you'd still see tobacco, sale, possession. On the back, you'll see Saturday school, all right? Then, but you could also see tobacco, and then you could also have, or suspension numbers going up. What I will be keeping a close tab on is this specific, to see how is it working?
Yeah.
But then more importantly, the recidivism, and taking a look at how has that impacted the student that went through this program the first time? Was there a repeat offense? Okay, so that'll be something we will track as we go through here.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to have it on the back here with the other, I don't know, actions taken. I mean, does it fall under drug and alcohol counseling? Or
Well-
would it be a separate line item? Because this is something we only do here. It's not something state reportable.
Yeah, it may fall under, and Joe, I would have to work with the administration. It may fall under a remedial other, it could fall under a sanction other. You know, we would have to determine what would be the best fit. So for consistency's sake, you know, when you have that offense where it results in going through the program, that we have a way to quantify those.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to see, you know, this spring, how much the program has been used and how it's helped students.
Very good. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Back to you, Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Dr. Ruppert. And we're going to move to 12:05, other items of business. I have none. Anybody else?
I just have a question, maybe for Dr. Reppert. I had someone mention over the summer, their student was here just practicing preseason stuff, and there were a number of cyclers that were coming on property, and they didn't have licensed motorcycles, and they had helmets, so they couldn't tell who it was, but they were sort of driving in a dangerous manner, and I wondered if you'd seen anything like that, or you'd heard about it from coaches that were on premises, or I'm sure the signage is going to help with, you know, keeping the
Cyclists driving through the campus? No, I have not heard
Okay.
anything of such. And then I can speak with, I know Officer Hanson and I speak regularly about things that he observes on campus, just to note for the community and for the board. We do have some students that are taking liberty to go onto our fields, the ones that are marked, like our main football field. So there has been warnings issued to students, which may turn into trespassing in the future. You know, so if there are the fenced, I thought that's what you're referring to, but, you know, when that football field's fenced in and closed for a reason, you know, our students and students from the community should not be going on in those fields. We do have other fields. But as for,
Signs will help with that.
yeah, but as for the cyclists, I have not heard anything specific. Maybe we could chat a little, you know.
What would you suggest a coach or a parent would do seeing something like that when they can't really address it themselves? You know,
Yeah, I
thinking
think
about them?
if there's something that we do have cameras on campus to inform, you know, Mr. Keeney, if it's a coach, Dr. Sterner, if it's a middle school coach, Dr. Bell, as long as we know like date and time, we could potentially identify. License plate wise, it's very difficult to identify those license plates of vehicles that are, you know, maybe going around campus.
These didn't have one, but,
Yeah.
okay.
But
Thank
also
you.
maybe safe to say, I mean, because if you don't know who to report it to, and it seems like it's a serious safety issue, safe to say it would.
Safe to say it would also work if it's a student that's seeing that. And then we could also then take a look at our cameras that we have around campus to see if there's any way of identifying.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is that's going to give a really precise timestamp on it.
Yes, it will.
Right, right.
So.
Yeah, I
exactly what
was
it
going to
will
say
fit.
too, if, when you're saying who to report it to, they can always call the switchboard. So if they don't know what extension, you just dial 0 and somebody will pick it up, and then we'll get it to whoever needs it.
Okay.
But
And if
the
it's a
closer
week-
we can get to the time, the easier it's going to be to pull, like date and time. So if they could, if it's at night, if they can call us the next day, we can then pull things and try to figure it out.
Okay.
And if it's unsafe behavior, evening, weekends, call 911. You know, because I think that way they can come, if there's people driving recklessly, it'll be, you know, they can at least put their best individuals on that situation.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
President Hinkle, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Next, we have our athletics and extracurricular, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Doberman.
Thank you. Item number 1301, there is no report, but I'm just gonna remind everybody that Meet the Team Night is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the stadium. And fall sports are definitely getting underway, but nothing to report at this point. Item number 1302, the Board of Education to consider approval of a family season pass for athletic events for the 24-25 school year at the cost of $75 for 10 games, which is a minimum of 25% savings, and $125 for 20 games, which is a minimum of 37% savings. So I'd like to make a motion to approve a family season pass for athletic events for the 24-25 school year at the cost of $75 for 10 games and $125 for 20 games. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussions?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was reading through this, and I wanted to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but it sounds like it says pass will permit 2 adults and their children, and it doesn't put a limit on that. So families with lots of children, come and pack the stands with fans. You get a good rate on it.
Is that correct? Because that was my question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the first thing I look for when I see family passes. What are they talking about? Like, you know, is this only families of 4 thing, or no, this is this is all families of all sizes.
The idea is that if you have a larger family, we're not going to preclude, we don't want it to be prohibitive for you to be able to come.
So 2 parents and as many children as they have.
Which is
Sounds
great.
good.
So then if I can understand it clearly, in that case, each adult would have their own pass, and then the students could,
Well, the idea would be a family pass, and you would come in as a family and we'd punch the pass. Now, if you came in separately, we're hoping you come in as a family because logistically, we got to make this work. But I would say, you know, occasionally, if like you couldn't all come at the same time, just let our ticket takers know, and you know, it's just like anything. If you forgot your pass or your tickets, we're going to believe you and we're going to let you in. So the idea is, though, you'd arrive as a family. It's a family pass for your whole family.
I guess the other question would be, like, if I decided to bring a friend for Nicole, is that part of my family?
No, it's not.
I know
No, we're
that,
not
but I'm
going
just-
to, I mean,
but
at
who's
the end of
gonna
the
draw that
day,
line?
again, we're hoping
Yeah.
people are going to be honest, that it's actually your family, not your family and
Yeah.
friends. But again, I don't think we're going to sit there and say, are these all your children? But the idea, it is your family, not your family and friends.
No, I can see people taking advantage of it. So.
I know you mentioned earlier, you know, in the communication that it would be purchasable on My School Bucks, you know, once everything is all settled. And
Yes.
then how would you develop a pass to show to the ticket taker at the window, or?
Yes, so folks are already working on, I think it's completed, I haven't seen it yet, but, so we had the other passes, we had the adult and student passes. So now they're just working on making the family pass. So again, we would, you'd have a pass and it'd be punched for the family. So similar to how we punch the other passes.
Okay.
And then we'll advertise it. We have not been very successful with our passes. We'll continue to advertise those, and hopefully we'll get more people to take advantage. Because they aren't, they are for the year, they're not for a particular season. So that, it is a discount if you have children in more than one sport.
And if you run out one pass, then you just buy another one.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
well, and I guess potentially we could advertise it right at the ticket booth, and people were walking up buying their tickets, they could see, the opportunity exists, if you want to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Would we even be able to make them purchasable at the ticket booth? Would that get too complicated?
We could, but the one thing, they'd have to probably have exact change. We don't do
Right.
credit cards at the
Right,
ticket
right,
booth,
right,
so
right.
I think it would
Yeah.
be those kinds of things.
Sort
But
of
we
get-
usually have enough personnel around, we can make it happen.
If you just happen to have $75, I usually don't carry a lot
Or
of cash.
maybe
but-
the next time they come, they're prepared. They're like,
Yeah,
oh, well,
right.
if we're gonna come to the game next week, maybe next week we'll walk up and buy a pass and
Yeah.
then we're good for the rest of the season or whatever the case.
Yep, true.
But then you'll have to spend all your concession money in one night.
Any other questions or discussion? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, this motion carries, and that concludes my report.
Okay. Committee report, other business. Anyone have other business that's not going to be new business? No? All right. Moving on to item 15.01, Legislative Council. Mrs. Mary Lee Hall.
Okay, so this month, just like Mrs. Green was talking about, it was all about the state budget wrap-up. So lots to say about the general appropriations budget, which was Senate Bill 101. So a few highlights just for schools entirely in the state of Pennsylvania, not our district only. But $8.1 billion to be distributed amongst the basic education funding. It's a $285 million increase over 2023-2024 throughout our state. And that includes $1.48 billion for special education, and that's a $526 million increase from last year, as well as $1 million for cyber charter reimbursement, and $100 million for public school facility improvement grants through the Commonwealth Financing Authority, which Mrs. Green was talking about, that she wasn't quite sure what was going to happen with that, but I'm hoping that something will help us recoup some of our funds. Senate Bill 700 establishes charter school reform regarding ethics and transparency requirements, advertising and sponsorship terms, and cyber charter school access to district facilities for testing and wellness checks for students. Also signed by the governor, Senate Bill 1150. That's Grow PA Scholarship Grant Program, which offers grants up to $5,000 per year for in-state students who attend college in Pennsylvania, pursue a degree in a high-demand occupation, and agree to live and work in that career in Pennsylvania after they graduate. And on the horizon, Senate Bill 1207 was also signed by the governor, sponsored by Senator Ament. We were just talking about that earlier this meeting. Provides resources to limit smartphone use during the 6.5-hour school day. So the law incorporates a cell phone use policy for school districts to implement if they choose. It includes secure lockable smartphone bags in which the students will keep their mobile devices upon arrival in, magnetized, and it locks automatically after they put their phone in and shut the top. It's unlocked by a universal magnetic device station controlled by administrators within the building at the day's end. So then they would go and touch that, and it would open up their bag, and they would have access to their phone again. The bill also amends the school safety and mental health grant structure to allow the secure bags and magnetic stations to be purchased through those grants. Each public school district will be eligible for an automatic base grant of $100,000, and then career and technical schools and intermediate school units would be at $70,000. The new law provides a great opportunity for schools to address one of the major root causes of mental health crisis among students. Reducing smartphone use has proven successful in reversing negative mental, emotional, and academic trends among students. And the Senate is adjourned until September 16th, and the House of Representatives will return to session September 23rd. And that concludes my report.
Mrs. Hingle, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
York County School of Technology, anything to report?
I just have that the first day of school for new students is August 20th, and everyone else is August 21st. Did you have anything, Bill? I know you covered that last meeting, so.
Yeah, the only thing I would have is that they did a presentation on their nursing program, and they had great success with it. And they also noted that they had the same number of students enrolled for this coming year. So it was good to see and to get exposed to. Otherwise, it was business as usual, I would say.
Did you get cookies? Did you get cookies?
I don't think so.
I was out of school.
Did I get
Like-
ripped off?
Yes, I think you did. You might want to go to the next meeting. It was out of session school, I guess, so the kids couldn't make them, but, yeah, you got ripped off. Sorry. I'll make a note, you go to that one next year, too.
LIU 12, anything to report? All right, the director's agenda and Don's early light document are attached for your information. York Adams Tax Bureau?
Nope.
Nothing to report. Southern York County School District Foundation? Mrs. Hall?
Not yet, except for the next Southern York County School District Foundation meeting will be on Tuesday, September 10th, and I look forward to a new year of scholarship preparations. It's always exciting.
Excellent. 1506, other items of business. I hear none. Secretary's report, 16.01, student activities report for June 2024 is attached for your information. The fall student teacher internship placements for fall 2024 are there also for your information. Graduate student practicum placement, 2024-2025 school year. Colleen Simpson from Eastern Mennonite University will be placed with Lauren Myers. Nurse at Southern Elementary School for the 2024-2025 school year. Resignations and retirements, there are a few there for your information. Other items of business. I hear none, so we'll move on to 17.01. Usually turn this over to Dr. Reppert. Is that what we're doing tonight?
Yeah, I'll take it this time instead of kicking it to Dr. Bryson. Just one thing to note, our outside cyber charter numbers have decreased. And hearing Mrs. Green speak about the impact of the cyber charter, just something to, kind of take a look at. Our homeschool education numbers are steady where they are right now. But we did have one family, I believe, that was on cyber charter that did move to homeschool. So, we're doing anything and everything we can to, get those families to come back. But obviously, if their decision is to, stay in a cyber charter school, they're more than welcome to. But just want to report that those numbers are coming down.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Just looking at the numbers, they're so small for the Digital Academy. Is this something that there should be a minimum, or is it if there's one student that the Digital Academy would need to be still available? How does that work?
We'll take a look. We have two there. We have our Digital Academy, and then we have the Lincoln Edge cyber. And I think as a district, we do have students that the brick and mortar just doesn't work for them. And when we take a look at the cost for those students being in hours or through our Lincoln Edge going to a cyber charter,
Sure.
I mean, Mrs. Green could probably talk to what the difference would be, but to maintain those programs and options for students, I believe it's something that's in our best interest because, we want to do what's in the best interest of our students. And,
But just to piggyback on that, I think, yes, we need to look at that because we've done some of that already, moving from 700 kids in Digital Academy down to almost none. During when schools were going hybrid, right? So we had actually dedicated teachers, and they're all back in the classrooms. But that was gradual, year to year. So I think at this point it is, a good question to take a look at. it may be time to say it's Lincoln Edge, or that's what we have, because it's not cost effective to do it for 4 kids. Not that we don't want to, but yeah, at some point, the cost is prohibitive.
And then from my understanding, in talking with Dr. Rogers, some of the students that, and I would have to take a look at the specific students, maybe some of our students in special education programs within our district that are participating in those because they're not able to come into our school, and Lincoln Edge is not an opportunity. And I'm paying for them to go somewhere else at a special education rate would be a lot higher. So for our next meeting, I'll take a look at the specific individuals just to kind of see what their unique situations are with that.
Right, item 17.02, announcements by the board president and superintendent. I need to announce that we had on July 2nd an executive session for the superintendent evaluation. And then immediately prior to this meeting, we had an executive session on a special education matter and personnel matter. We also have our Personnel and Policy Committee meeting that will be held on Tuesday, September 17th in the district office's multipurpose room beginning at 6 p.m. Please do note the date change. And then the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, September 19th, 2024 in the district office's multipurpose room beginning at 7 p.m. On to new business. Does anyone have new business? I hear none. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
We are adjourned.
I think that's a record.